All right. Hello, YouTube. It's been a minute. So, I'm just making this quick stream to address something that I see. It's sort of a question, or I see this question or variations of this question being kind of thrown around in a very imprecise way, and I think that this needs to be addressed. I mean, this is something that I should. It's fairly common knowledge. I mean, it's easy stuff to look up online if you take a look at it from sort of an unbiased perspective and look at all the look at let's say academic research on the matter, and sort of make your own conclusions. And like this is something that should be pretty obvious to people. It's something that people never really were asking about ever in the past, but I guess now we need to clarify. Okay, so the problem with the question is fundamentally in asking it is it's kind of muddled and imprecise. Okay, so what does white mean? White can mean a lot of things. For instance, according to the American census, as well as in colloquial usage in some parts of America, like let's say New York City, white simply means a sort of relatively light-skinned person from Europe, Near East, sometimes even South Asia, Central Asia, North Africa, etc. It's kind of meaningless. So basically, but another definition of white that I hear people use it in as sort of in lieu of is European. So I'm going to say that white means European, all right? Because so instead of using the term white, I'm going to use the term European, so we can be more precise here. So the question is, are Jews European? This is a nuanced question, so it actually takes a moment to unpack. But we can actually look at this and get an answer out of it pretty easily. So, are Jews European? All right. So let's see. Jews. The term Jews, the ethnos Jews, comes from it's a term that's derived from the term an ethnic demonym describing the indigenous inhabitants of Judea. All right, Judea. So Judea was an ancient Levantine civilization of the Hebrew/Israelite, whatever you want to call them, people who are who many argue to be descendants of what some refer to as, I guess, sort of a proto-Canaanite population that resided in the region. You can see a genetic as well as a linguistic continuity. Actually, there's a paper linked where you can look at the genetic continuity between present-day Levantine populations and Bronze Age Levantine populations by Mark Haber. You can look at that in the comment section or the description section of my video. But anyway, moving on, or getting back to the original thing I was talking about. Sorry, I literally actually just woke up. I was sleeping in, so my mind is all over the place. But I just felt like I needed to speak out on this. Basically, Jews are there's this ancient population, this Near Eastern population of Judeans. So that's where the term Jew comes from. But modern Jews, they have obviously they've dispersed around. I mean, some will dispute this, but we can get into this later. Genetically speaking, it seems fairly logical that there's a Middle Eastern, or a Levantine, specifically a Levantine population that dispersed around the neighboring regions, like let's say Iran, other parts of West Asia, North Africa, Southern Europe, eventually making their way into places like Northern Europe, Russia, and sometimes even further east than that. So we have this Levantine component that's found genetically in nearly all Jewish populations today, which includes Ashkenazi Jews. However, there's also European admixture mixed in found in Ashkenazi Jews. In some Sephardic Jews, you can find a little bit of admixture mixed in from regions of North Africa with Jews in other parts of the world. You'll find that mixing occurs, but it happens to such a limited degree that nearly all populations that identify as, quote, Jewish today, or Jews, or or Israelites. I think in China the term was like Israeli or something like that for one of the Jewish communities that said to have preserve their heritage or whatnot. Point is, there's this continuous Levantine element that is linked also to this ancient sort of proto Judean / Israelite quote unquote Canaanite element that's present in nearly all populations that identify as Jew today, and then in the case of like European Jews, those Jews are admixed with Europeans, so they're a mixed population in the sense that I don't know, let's say Roma Gypsies, or in the sense that I don't know, I guess the term is castizos or mestizos in the Americas. Are you have these, or even let's say African Americans as they're known. You have these hybridized populations. It's the like African Americans have this European genetic component. So basically, the answer to the question, quote, are Jews white, is many Jews that are quote Ashkenazi or Sephardic, however, not necessarily all of them for various reasons, and that's something I can go into later. But basically, many of the Jews that have historically been in Europe at some point in time or another have a somewhat significant to fairly significant, depending on the individual, component of European admixture, but they also have this Levantine component that's continuous with other Jewish communities. That can also be found in Lebanese Druze, as well as I guess Samaritan, I believe, and other Levantine populations, like for instance many Lebanese Christians and Lebanese Muslims also have this genetic component. So basically, are Jews white? Yes, many Jews, including Jews from the Middle East, are pale-skinned Caucasoids. So by that definition, or Caucasoids, basically West Eurasian descent people. Caucasoids is kind of an imprecise and outdated term, but yeah, they are. But most Jews are also of this sort of Near Eastern, West Asian, Levantine component, and it's been preserved to a fairly significant degree, even found in many of these Ashkenazi Jews, who people often like to say are oh, it's. I mean, people will say, oh, they look white, but what does look white mean? I mean, look white could mean any number of things. Do they look European? I would say you look at Ashkenazi Jews and they look like a hybrid population. They don't look European. They don't look Middle Eastern. They look like Europeans who have mixed with Middle Easterners, or vice versa, however you choose to look at it, in varying capacities. And there's even some researchers who dispute that the allegedly European maternal component that's found in Ashkenazi Jews is even European at all. And if it's not instead an ancient sort of an ancient Levantine component that no longer exists in the Near East and only exists in the Mediterranean regions because it's been displaced in the further east regions, but it survived because in some of the Mediterranean regions because it was white. I mean, that's a whole separate section. But the point is, are Jews white? As far as they identify and in the purpose and in the functions of how they behave, they're functionally speaking, they're a Levantine, Near Eastern, Middle Eastern group that where the ethnos formed itself, the original Judean ethnos formed itself in the Levant, and then it dispersed out. And yeah, there's been admixture going on, but fundamentally the component is not. Just because admixture is occurring does not mean that the original ethnos is sort of like like, for instance, the identity has largely been preserved, and this is due to several factors. This is due to sort of this religious self-identification. It's due to like sort of natural cultural differences. When Jews arrived in Europe, for instance, they were effectively this sort of foreign West Asian group, and they were treated as such, and that's where a lot of this sort of like like us versus them mentality comes from. It comes from the fact that Jews and Europeans are fundamentally a completely different people, come from different peoples. That you have these Indo-European peoples of Europe who have different genetic histories, different genetic components. They have completely different ancestral history. They have completely different religion. And then you compare it to populations like Jews who are more similar to people from around, let's say, Lebanon. It's fairly self-explanatory. I would say that the question Jews are white is not a precise one. Jews are not European. Jews are definitely not European. And although Jews are mixed with Europeans, then they're just a mixed population. That doesn't make them European. That makes them half European. Would you say Obama is European? No, you wouldn't. All right. So I guess that pretty much concludes this. I'm just going to quickly check for questions. And if there are no questions, I'm just going to conclude the stream. Hello. All right. Yeah. So let's see. Someone said Jews may be, quote, white, but they aren't, quote, white in the same way that the alt-right would consider, quote, white European. It's because the alt-right, I don't know why the alt-right, or whatever it's known as, sort of uses the term white so much. They should, it would be better for them to use the term European, because there's less ambiguity, because Jews deliberately love to blur, or in there are instances wherein Jews will blur, white and European, and white meaning sort of like pale-skinned person of West Eurasian descent. They'll sort of like blend the terms around and say like, oh, yeah, I would if I were a European who is of, quote, alt-right or whatever persuasion, or identitarian, whatever you would call it, I would say use the term European or of European descent, and plus European, it's more precise. It gives you, why not say European? Like, I wouldn't describe myself as white. I would, or I would just, or even brown. I would describe myself as like West Asian, Levantine, Hebrew, Middle Eastern, Near Eastern, even though that's, I guess, a Eurocentric term or whatever, etc. Jewish, Judean, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, I would not use the term white or brown or tan, beige to describe myself, even though it might be, yeah. Carl Schmidt says in Identity Europa we say European instead of white, and yeah, good on you. I 100% endorse that. Yeah, no reason not to say European. It's a much nicer term as well, and has much more historical grounding. Like Europa is an ancient term. I know that Europa or something like that is how they would say it in the Near East sphere. Europa is an ancient term. And someone says, is it me or does Bab sound like he's using a voice mod? No, actually, I just got my Blue Yeti microphone working, and I actually haven't worked out the audio settings, so it might be messing around a bit. Unlock the Power says, I think some of the American alt-righters don't like the term European because it implies they should go back to Europe in a way. And I don't know. Well, that's on them. I would, if I was in America, in the New World, whatnot, I would rather go back to the old world, and because that's exactly what I'm doing. That's I think it's a much more pleasant experience. There's historically speaking, there's a lot more to connect to over there. I would say it's incredible. Like, I was actually just recently looking at old maps of New York at an auction show at the Armory on like, I don't know exactly where it is, but it's around like 68th Street or something like that. And I was at the Armory show, and they had these old photos, as well as old drawn out plans of New York City throughout the decades, going back over 100 years. In this one auction, sort of auctioneer's room, or sort of this one like section of the place, and it's just incredible. There's all this amazing, beautiful old stuff that's been completely torn down and destroyed. This amazing Europe, sort of more traditional European style architecture, like Dutch quarters and whatnot. And it's just incredibly tragic. Like, increasingly there's less and less. I would feel, if I were a European person, I would feel like increasingly there's less and less in America to connect to. And as a Jew, I feel as if as a Jewish person, because that's what's in vogue to say. People like to say Jewish people, they don't say Jew. But as a Jew, I feel as if there's not much for me to connect to here, even though I'm someone who's been raised in the West my entire life, and I find that there's a lot more for me to connect to in somewhere like Israel. So that's what I have to say. Tommy Pickles said, I missed the last Adam and Ed talk. Adam isn't coming back, and I don't know. I'm sure Adam will be back. I mean, he's not gone forever. He won't disappear like that. I think he's just doing he doesn't really have internet connection at the moment, and he's doing several things, just important things with his life. Like, I think he's sort of enriching his spiritual knowledge. So I don't really want to interrupt that for some inane live stream. Invented Peanut Butter asks, am I going through an identity crisis? No, I've gone through my identity crisis already. I had my I had my identity crisis when I was like 18 or 19 or whatever. Like, I've been there, done that, I'm 100% certain in my Hebrew identity, I guess, as I would say, and that's not really going to change, because it's basically just accepting who I am. I'm a Middle Eastern guy. I'm a Jew. That's it. Like, that fundamentally, that's it. I'm not. The crisis is the crisis of modernity and the crisis of the modern world that's unfolding around me, especially in a debauched place like New York. I'm not really going through much of an identity crisis myself. I would say that I'm one of the few people who isn't going through an identity crisis. Meanwhile, identity crises manifest themselves everywhere around me, in nearly everyone I talk to. Guys says, I do agree with Greg Johnson's view. Greg Johnson, I believe, is the Countercurrents publisher. I think I actually might have just bumped into him, shook hands even once at a Sam Hyde show with him, just for a moment. I'm not sure if that's a dox, but he was at some Sam Hyde show in New York, and let's see, yeah, he publishes Countercurrents, I believe, and it says, I do agree with Greg Johnson's view on the American white race, quote unquote, for all intents and purposes, a unique mixed European demographic. Yeah, I would argue that that's true, but I would still say that they're, what are they? They're not mixed whites necessarily. They're, mixed Europeans. So they're, but yeah, sure, call that the white American race. Like, I do see the point and the validity of what's being said there, but still, nonetheless, I think that the broadening of the franchise, as it were, from quote white being simply Europeans, effectively, to encompassing to quote white, encompassing first it began with Jews who were originally labeled as Hebrew, but then were labeled as quote white, which was something that Ashkenazi Jews petitioned very hard for. And this is actually an interesting trend in Europe. This is actually how the Khazar, whatever you want to call it, theory originated. This theory was originally propagated by Arthur Kessler, whatever you want to call it, in an attempt to pathetically save his skin and his fellow Jews from the sort of European kind of sentiment of Jews are exogenous foreigners and must leave. but alas, to no avail. He only basically like spouted lies, and then those lies circulated around years later, and came back and bit Jews in the ass. So great going, and that's what happens when you lie, Arthur Kessler. Now people like me have to deal with and to unpackage and unpack all your lies, which you told for personal moment and group momentary gain. And I would say that, I mean, you'll find people like Benjamin Friedman who are propagating similar things. Like Benjamin Friedman knows nothing. You know, he's not only is he not an academic, but he's just speaking out of his ass. He's just telling people what they wanted to hear in that moment, and also to a degree what. I mean, the whole and likewise with the Shlomo Sand. For instance, Shlomo Sand cites Aaron Elhaik as one of his sources, who is who basically, it's interesting what he does. He uses if anyone who knows what they're doing would look at the way that he did his genetic quote study and realize that his paper is completely bunk. And actually, I can explain that in just a moment. But I just received a phone call and I have to answer that, so it'll be just a second. Hello? All right, so good news, everyone. I just got a call from Lyft, and apparently someone has been charging rides to my account. So I guess someone, I don't know. I guess I've been hornswoggled by some scammers at some point in time or another. That's good to know. So I'm like down $100 and something. That's always lovely. Doesn't really matter though, because I have my Blue Yeti mic and I've got the cord that connects the mic to the computer, and I have the laptop. And that's really all I need at the end of the day in order to do what I'm doing right here. Let's see. Invented Peanut Butter asks me, do you feel like a minority within the Jewish community? For your thoughts. And are you a half Jewish or full? Half Jew? Oh, yeah. All right. So do I feel like a minority within the Jewish community? Okay, so Jewish community, there's a lot of Jewish communities. There are a lot of Jewish communities, rather. For instance, let's take a look at the community, I guess one would say, that I'm in is the sort of like I guess primarily sort of like the sort of like Jews of the Upper East and West sides of Manhattan and of North London. It's like these communities are specifically the secular communities. These communities are particularly averse to ideas like what I'm surrounding. Like, for instance, there are religious Jews I'll find who are quite open to some ideas that would be deemed reactionary by the types that I associate with. But I'd say that the types I associate with, particularly those in my generation, are quite averse to my way of thinking. So I generally just keep it to myself. And I'll say, and it's funny because I'll drop certain things. Like I'll say certain things. Like I'll go on about how like I don't like capitalism or consumerism, for instance, or corporations or something like that, and they'll think and often they'll think I'm some sort of leftist, but that's just because I'm censoring half of my thoughts. You know, it's quite amusing, but yeah, any sort of, I mean, for instance, I would say that within my own family, my mother's, to quote herself, my mother is a quite vehement anti-Zionist, and in that sense, or rather, shall I say, opposed to the existence of a Hebrew polity, especially a Hebrew polity in the Levant. And the reason for this, the reason for her thinking this, is because she thinks that she is not like a self-hating Jew, quote unquote, as it were. She thinks that Jews actually have like a unique intellectual perspective, and that this is because they're a diaspora. So she effectively is kind of she agrees with me that Jews are, in a sense, I guess, unique, and have this unique perspective to critique mainstream society because of the diaspora, and this always puts them at the intellectual vanguard, one could say. However, I would say that this is a terrible thing, and this is an ancient, rooted sedentary people, an indigenous people who had a land and had farmers and kings and warriors, becoming a sort of this sort of rootless, parasitic, directionless, unhealthy, sickly entity, and then my mother, on the other hand, saying that Jews are in a unique position to like create some of the most interesting art and literature because they're always on the outside, as it were. So they always have like unique points of criticism and critique and whatnot. Now, this is precisely what many Westerners would say is destroying their civilization. This behavior that is being noticed by both me and my mother, but my mother is my mother's sense of Jewish pride, or shall I say Hebrew pride, as she's not even religious herself. It stems from this. Pardon me, I live by Mount Sinai at the moment, so that's a thing going by my house. But point is, it's the same thing that Westerners might say is destroying their civilization. I might say is destroying the Hebrew people. My mother would say is where she draws her sense of Hebrew pride from, and I find this to be. And my mother often will remark, I think Israel is terrible. I think Israel should never have been recreated, whatnot, because the Jews are effectively just going back to being another group of like dumb peasants in the Middle East. She effectively views it as a regression from being this cosmopolitan, urbanized kind of like physically atrophied, but very, very kind of mentally focused in certain mental aspects. She views I wouldn't even call it like a phenotype. I would call it like I guess I don't even know how to describe it, but my it's just fascinating. It's just fascinating. She the same thing that I would describe as the unhealthy decay of a people, she would describe as what the only thing that makes us special. She doesn't want us to go back to being a normal people. She doesn't. She thinks that. Yeah. Someone says in the comment section. Wow, there's a lot of comments here. Okay. Hashtag hornswoggled. I met Greg Johnson in person. He's a really fun guy to hang out with. Yeah, he seemed pretty cool. He seemed quite cheery. Yeah. I mean, he went to a Sam Hyde show. You have to be a fun-loving guy to do that. Come on. Someone says, extremely off-topic question. Thoughts on Martin Shkreli? All right, so Martin Shkreli, this is interesting. I think that, I mean, I'm not going to talk about his persona right now. I'm just going to talk about his actions first and foremost. I think that there's a lot more nuance to the price gouge that Martin Shkreli enacted than a lot of people. There's more nuance to it than a lot of people originally saw there off the bat, and that caused many people to have this sort of visceral hatred reaction to him. That, combined with his smugness, combined with the fact that he effectively comes off as a nasally voiced manlet, rather like myself or Ben Shapiro, as it were. But it's not a good look. But what he did, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't actually as bad as it looked. Didn't really look into the details of it, but there was a friend of mine who I actually asked about it, who works in. I don't know exactly what he does, but he something with moving money around, some sort of like investing job. And I asked him, because he often works works in like the pharmaceutical field or something like this. Like what happened here? And he went into the details of actually what it was. I wish I could remember now. This was like years ago, but the point is, it wasn't actually as bad as it looked, and whatever, it's not a big deal. Who cares? I don't even really. I mean, regardless. Then now he's doing. I don't know. He's isn't he going on stuff with like? He's trying to like be a big, media person. Like, yeah, okay, cool. You do yourself, man. Whatever. I mean, it's just sort of a Milo Yiannopoulos type thing, really, isn't it? Just like, oh, I like to be provocative. Cool. Hey, guys, says. Carl Schmidt says, my cousin married a Jew. I advised him against it, but he's doing the conversion and he wants to eventually get to Israel. She's a total bitch, lol. Yeah, I'm against it too. Yeah. Of course, typical Jewish woman wants European guys. I mean, I've seen that play out a million times before. Really, it's not that. It's just that they oftentimes they'll just go for secular Jewish women, especially, or less Orthodox Jewish women. Generally, I'm not even going to get into that here. Someone says, I apologize for insulting common Jewish phenotypes. Like, I couldn't even care. What annoys me is that when people make it out like it's a Jewish phenotype to have a big nose, like, it's not like Jews have any bigger nose than any of the neighboring, like, Syrian or Lebanese or Druze populations. Like, and what I find ludicrous is you'll see this Palestinian propaganda. You'll see these pictures made by the brave warriors of the Palestinian cause that show pictures of these Jews with these huge hook noses and ridiculous stereotype exaggerated Near Eastern features, and then you'll have like this pale-skinned, blue-eyed European Palestinian warrior, like innocent child warrior, like throwing a stone at this like hideous caricature. And it's like, you realize that we're both like West Asian, we're both like Middle Eastern, like you can find that like physical situation manifesting itself like everywhere in the Middle East. Like it's not just us. Like, that's just ridiculous. At that point, it's just like I find it highly amusing though when that happens. It's like same to you, buddy. A guy says, I'm a huge Martin fan. I wouldn't say he's a Milo type. Carl Schmidt says Martin is the best. He's definitely an online personality, although he has interesting things to say about investing, businesses, etc. That's cool. I might consider going to check out his channel. I don't know much about either of those things. I haven't done much investing or much business in my life. Haven't really needed to. I may be about to start working at a very large, I guess I would call it sort of like a bank/wealth management firm, but I'm not sure if that's actually going to end up happening. Like, I'm just sort of like working that situation out right now. It's just sort of like, I figured I might as well do something different with my time. I'm sort of getting just kind of wanting to change my vocational status and sort of stop being a perpetual student. But it's just nice to have something to do during the day. But someone said Babs, I'm surprised you are not more impressed with what your people have accomplished by subverting the West. They're hugely influential and intelligent. I would be more proud of it if Jews hadn't ended up subverting themselves to almost the same, if not a greater degree. Like, for instance, let's take a look at Israel. Israel is like the homosexuality capital of the Near East, or at least the West Asian, the sort of Semitic West Asia. It's the homosexual capital of Semitic West Asia. And also Israel is full of all these sort of like left-wing, predominantly Ashkenazi, but there are also some like annoying, like westernized Iraqi Jews who have these opinions. And these people have really pissed me off. And I'd like to have a heart-to-heart with these people, quite frankly, because these people will say things like, basically, these people will argue against the existence of a Hebrew polity. And I mean, that's all fine and good, but the last few if you look at literally what happened to your ancestors in 1941, when there wasn't, a Jewish military to defend you, you'll see what happened. You got raped and murdered and tortured. And that's not a place where I want to be, and that's not a place where you want to be. But what did I say? What was I saying? Point is like Jews, a lot of Jews in their ways have become rotten to the core and degenerate in their moral behavior, and have been affected by the same malignance that they perpetrate throughout the civilizations that they dwell in, specifically the West. And I think that this is a twofold issue. Number one, Jews are part of the broader Afro-Asiatic family, which was overrepresented in the Ottoman Empire, Umayyad Caliphate, and other caliphates and Near Eastern empires. All right, so Near Eastern centered or Maghreb centered sort of empires. So there's that first off. So there's more of the linguistic genetic similarity. There's also, I think one could argue, more of a religious similarity between Islam and Judaism. Both of those are in some ways more similar to one another than Christianity is to either. Christianity has this, what Spengler would describe as Apollonian quality, which is not present in the what Spengler would describe as more, quote, Magian religions of Semitic West Asia. Though he also describes Zoroastrianism as a similarly, quote, Magian religion. All right, let's see. What was someone was saying? Someone said, hey, guys, being a wealthy, intelligent New York Jew is pretty cushy, eh? And I'll say, like, I mean, I'm not particularly intelligent, but living in New York isn't bad. Unlock the Power says, do you believe the mainstream 6 Gorillian Holocaust narrative? Well, I don't know. Take a guess. I mean, I'm not an expert. Like, there are people who have done tons of research into the matter, but I mean, like, that's totally its own topic. I mean, I have my hunches. I have my own suspicions. I think that regardless of what the outcome is, it doesn't matter, because of the manner in which it's politicized is completely the manner in which it has been politicized and used as and weaponized is completely irresponsible and morally, to me, repugnant. So I think that regardless of the actual events that took place, it doesn't matter, because the sort of, I wouldn't say mythical narrative, because that's a bit of a controversial way of putting it. Not a mythical narrative, but the event, the sort of capital E event, the happening occurred as it did, and that's effectively been solidified and cemented in history as it has been, and now is being used as a weapon with which to bludgeon indigenous European peoples over the head with, and I think that's not right. So I think that ultimately I'm not going to go and make some assertion right now that I can't back up, because the minute I say anything, someone's going to hit me with oh, like fucking, provide statistics, and like I literally just don't have the information on hand, so I'm not going to get into like a whole big situation with this right now. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I mean, it's a topic that it shouldn't be. The conversation should not be closed down and shut down, as it so often is. I think it should be something that's completely open for free debate and discussion, so that we can come to the truth of the matter. Like, that's what I think is important about questions like, let's say, for instance, the ancestry of Jews. I think that it's important to not stifle any debate about such things, because and not to look at it with a much of a biased perspective, or try to limit bias, because everyone ultimately is biased. But the truth will make itself present. Just look at the evidence before you. And I think that when people want to close off a debate, it's usually a sign. It's usually a bad sign, at least to me. And I would not advocate closing off debates in such a manner. The truth ought to be explored and elucidated. Invented Peanut Butter says, are whites soon to be a minority and eventually cease to exist? Are whites soon to be a minority and eventually cease to exist? What do you think will happen to Ashkenazi Jews, since, quote, black and other POC view Jews as white? All right. As whites are soon to become a minority and eventually cease to exist, what do you think will happen to Ashkenazi Jews? I don't think anything really will happen to Ashkenazi Jews. I assume that the Ashkenazi Jews in the West, the same thing that will happen to them to a degree as the Europeans, but they will likely still retain their identity in a better manner as the Europeans retain any sort of European identity, just as that's sort of the nature of the Jewish diaspora situation. Jews are used to mixing yet retaining their identity. And I would say that similarly, Europeans have been sort of conditioned against doing such things, or rather been told not to in many instances, a combination of the two. I would say that similarly, I'm not sure if I don't want to take the agency away from European peoples and say, oh, they've been conditioned, but you see what I'm saying. And let's see, what will happen to Ashkenazi Jews? I think that Ashkenazi Jews in Israel, a few of them will sort of like stay cloistered off in their sort of urban, like Tel Avivian and otherwise sort of metropolitan areas, and have their little Ashkenazi cliquish in groups and whatever. But I think that a lot of Ashkenazi Jews, the more normal ones, the ones who aren't like elitist leftists who want to recreate Europe in the Levant, liberalist Enlightenment Europe in the Levant, those who aren't such, will mix with with Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews, and ultimately Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, and Sephardic Jews, which are these weird sort of divisions that are kind of ultimately unnecessary and pointless, will all kind of blend together, and ultimately all Jews are, quote, Mizrahi, which means, quote, Oriental, which means, quote, basically, as they're saying, it means the context, it means of the Near East, the Mashriq, the East, as opposed to the West being North Africa, or Europe, Western North Africa rather, and yeah, Jews are of West Asia. They're just going to go back to being a Levantine, West Asian Hebrew people. It doesn't really matter. Things like Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and Mizrahi. We all come from the same. We have a shared ancestral lineage, all three of those groups, and all the other, almost all, if not all, of the other Jewish groups out there have that shared ancient Levantine component as well. And I think that there's the diaspora is not a great thing. To me, it's a tragedy, and I think that there's no reason not to negate it as rapidly as possible. Do Jews widely believe in the superiority of leftism at its face value? How many of your fellow tribesmen's beliefs are based on a lack of morality or just cognitive dissonance? They don't scrutinize what people do in the fuck. Okay, I'm trying to understand this. I mean, I understand it, but I'm trying to like get a better sense of the comment so I can respond to it better. A guy says to invented peanut butter, saying that whites are soon to be a minority and cease to exist is rather clownish at best. And yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's Europe, and it's full of indigenous European people, and I think that even though a lot of them are on the older side, like for instance in Europe, there are a lot of younger people who are not indigenous Europeans. There's still enough of Europe, like for instance Eastern Europe, where it's full of indigenous Europeans, and I don't think Europeans will ever cease to exist. I mean, Jews haven't ceased to exist, and we're minuscule and insignificant compared to Europeans, and we've been around for a very long time. And there's no reason for European ethnicities individually or Europeans as a whole to really go extinct. I mean, some have, but the ones that are here right now largely have stood the test of time. And I'm going to try to respond to Agai's earlier comment now. Do Jews widely believe in the superiority of leftism at its face value? How many of your fellow tribesmen's beliefs are based on a lack of morality or just cognitive dissonance? They don't scrutinize what their beliefs actually do to people in the world. All right. I think that, no, I think from my personal experience, I would say that Jews, when I'm saying Jews in Western secular Jews predominantly, but also Western Reform Jews in a lot of instances, and even some Western conservative Jews, have this. First of all, they don't morally scrutinize very much, I guess one could say. Orthodox Jews morally scrutinize in this manner a lot more, from my own personal experience, or in a lot of instances, I'll find that they do, and especially vis-a-vis the role of, like, let's say, the role that Jews are playing in the world. I mean, they'll analyze, are we doing the right thing? Whereas I think that a lot of these, the Reform Jews will sort of blindly, tikkun olam away, and then the secular ones will sort of be committed steadfast to these sort of, I guess, like leftist values, because it's just what they were raised with, and it's just what they think is right. It's just from my own personal experience, it's you can't really step out of line. Like, for instance, I went to a prep school that was, I would say, like maybe 50%, perhaps a bit more, perhaps a bit less, Jewish, and or students of Hebrew descent, whatever, and the rest was sort of European descent, and some East Asian and Indian and whatnot. And it was a prep school on the Upper West Side, and it was a quote progressive prep school, and it was just like, I remember they would teach about white privilege. It was interesting because they would teach about white privilege, and that would be a lesson basically taught to everyone, to say, and they would say, they would include Jews in this and say, oh, Jews, feel bad, you have white privilege, you did this and that, you did this, like Jews were involved in the slave trade too, etc. They would hate you with that first, and this was in, I think, 7th grade, I remember, and then they would, and then immediately after, in the next semester, they would go in with the slavery thing, sorry, not the slavery thing. My apologies. They first it was the slavery thing, and then it was the Holocaust, and they would go to the Holocaust, and then it was like, oh, Jews are victims. Whitey is evil. So they would do both. And then they would, of course, obviously, like, promote things like homosexuality and whatnot. They would obviously promote things that are detrimental to civilization, for the most, like any civilization. And they would. So I truly do believe that in the instance of a lot of these sort of westernized, I guess, shall we call them, Jews, they really do, believe this stuff. And you can see that in Israel, for instance. Israel is the only, to my knowledge, West Asian country, the only Semitic country, Semitic language speaking, or even more broadly, I would even posit to say that Israel is the only Afro-Asiatic country that has banned a political party for being, quote, racist to a minority group, this being in case Arabs. Like, for instance, I don't think Jordan, a country that does not allow Jews to be citizens, has banned any political party within Jordan. I'm not even sure Jordan has political parties, but to the degree, but I don't believe Jordan has banned any political party or movement, etc., for being hostile or, quote, racist to Jews. Only Israel has this, and because Israel has this, it has a Supreme Court, and often, and Israeli politics is dominated disproportionately by these sort of leftist, and I guess what you would call center-right, sort of neocon aligned Ashkenazi Jews. And really, I don't agree with very much of what goes on in Israeli politics. I don't follow it very closely, but I don't really like the look of it. However, recently I went to a benefit with Ayelet Shaked, and it was quite refreshing to hear her speak. She's of Iraqi descent. She's of Hebrew descent, but of Iraqi extraction. I believe her family might even be from Baghdad as well. And she gave a very powerful speech upon the indigeneity of the Hebrew people in the Levant. And I thought that, wow, if only we could have, like more Mizrahi Jews speaking opinions such as this, as opposed to more like Ashkenazi Jews yammering on about Israel is great because it's a liberal democracy, or God gave you support Israel because God gave us this land. Please give us more money, American government. Like, I think that this is these are terrible. This is shit. It's shit. It's shit. It's last generation Hasbara. It's terrible. The art, like that's not going to work on anyone. Like, literally, in fact, saying like Israel is a European, Western, liberal democracy at your service in the Near East, like, will merely reinforce in the minds of these sort of ignorant white leftists the idea that Israel is this white Western supremacist, imperialist, racist, colonial, settler, invader, crusader state that's harming the indigenous, poor POC of brown Palestinian native, like pure Levantine, like it's like these people are idiots. The Israeli, not all of them, but a lot of people in the Israeli government are fucking idiots. And I could do a better job as despot than half of these ass clowns who are. Yeah, and I'm not just saying that anyone could. I think that anyone with a head on right, Israel has too much fucking democracy. That's why it's never going to get anything done. It's just going to stay deadlocked in democracy, a democracy that allows minority groups which have expressed their sentiment as to dethrone and make minority, the indigenous majority. It allows them to serve in government. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, as I said earlier, the Jews have imbibed their own poison. This can be seen in Israel. This can be seen in the way that Israel is the furthest left country in the region. All right. Someone said, without whites aiding Israel, do you think Israelis will last that long? Since they're literally surrounded by Muslims. Well, I don't know. I mean, we've done pretty well so far. Yeah, we fought an existential war with no Western aid except for a few weapons from the commies during when was it? During 1948. So I think that it shouldn't be too difficult to pull that off again. In fact, I demand Western aid to Israel cease. In the same way that Mayor Kahana did. He said that it's not a good relationship. It's not a healthy relationship. All it will do is breed hatred. It's a waste of money for Americans, and it keeps the military-industrial complex alive. And the military-industrial complex has a stake in which has a stake in keeping the conflict alive. And there are other people who have a stake in keeping the conflict alive. And I think that I think that the West and the West, Europe and West Asia should amicably separate in as to as great a degree as possible. And I think that would be what's best for both civilizational groupings, as it were. They will use the Goyim to build the Greater Israel Project first. I'm fairly skeptical of the Greater Israel Project, but I do think that there are a lot of people in Israel who would attempt to reclaim all of what was once biblical Judea slash Samaria slash is a very large portion of the Levant, basically. But I would say that they wouldn't really attempt. I don't think that there are many Israelis, many Jews who would attempt to randomly just take huge swathes of West Asia. I think that they would attempt to claim what is historically relevant to the Hebrew people at most. Someone said, let's be honest here. Western Europeans don't really view Eastern Europeans, i.e. Russians, as whites. The majority, that is. Slavs have a lot of Asiatic admixture. That's why their countries are different than Western Europeans. I would say that it's much more, that's not the main there's a difference between Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans. And what you're describing is, quote, Asiatic. I mean, the, quote, Asiatic ancient North Eurasian component is something that can be found in like the ancient Indo-Europeans. I mean, that's like saying the Aryans are Asiatic. Like, I mean, I wouldn't call the Slavic peoples Asiatic. Now, I'm not a Western European, nor am I an Eastern European, so I can't say what either of the two groups think about each other. If someone in the comments would like to tell me, go ahead. But I think that Slavs are more similar to Western Europeans than they are different from, I would posit. And I see many Slavs in America who assimilate to American European society to a greater degree than, let's say, African Americans or even like Jewish Hebrew Americans who have been here longer. I've seen the Eastern Europeans who have come more recently, as well as Mediterranean Europeans, do a greater job of assimilating, as it were, to the broader sort of, I guess you could say, sort of pan-Western European, kind of once sort of pan British Isles, once Anglo, / Dutch kind of American culture. I think that you see what I think that Eastern Europeans have done, from what I've seen. I think that, I guess this is going to sound like a weird thing. Genetically, this is going to be such an autistic statement. Genetically speaking, I think that Eastern Europeans are capable of assimilating to Western European civilization to a high degree, if not fully. That's just or maybe I'm wrong, but I think there are differences, and those differences probably manifest themselves. Like, for instance, Eastern Europeans have more cranial capacity. This is correlated with higher visuospatial IQ. From my experience, it's usually Eastern European countries that do higher on, I think, maths or even sometimes sciences related things, whereas Western European countries generally score higher on tests that are related to verbal things. So I would say that the genetic profile of Western Europeans might be I guess the IQ profile. Oh, this is going to be so autistic. I would guess, me as an idiot, nobody, a layman, would guess that the IQ profile of Western Europeans is a bit more in the sort of like more visuospatial oriented situation that you'll find amongst like Jews and other Near Easterners, or sorry, the more verbal oriented and the less visuospatial / mathematic oriented, whereas there's a more mathematics / visuospatial orientation, specifically visuospatial orientation, found in Eastern European peoples. That's just a guess. That's just me guessing. No data, nothing. Like me doing a goofy little guess. I don't know anything, but it would be interesting if someone could send me some data on this. When Invented Peanut Butter says that when I say Asiatic, I mean Mongoloids. And yeah, there is this, quote, Mongoloid, I guess you can call it, this sort of Central Asian component in like Scythian / and other like, quote, Aryan / Indo-European peoples. Yeah, they were like steppe peoples, but they were also light-skinned, I believe. They had light skin, and I think that the European indigenes had light eyes, and these peoples had light skin, and they mixed, if I'm not mistaken, and then we have this phenotype of the light eyes and the light skin found in Europeans, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, this is an obvious simplification and dumbing down. There are many groups that have made transit through Europe, some leaving more of a genetic trace, some leaving less. There are many different indigenous groups that were all over various regions of Europe, so I'm obviously simplifying things down. But if you see what I'm saying, I don't think to call the Slavs quote Mongoloids, which I think is, again, that's an outdated term. Like things like Mongoloid, quote, Mongoloid, Caucasoid, Congoid breakdown. There's a lot more nuance to it, and it's actually quite interesting. Like, for instance, look up basal Eurasians. Look up some of the indigenous West European populations, or what do you call them? Ancient North Eurasians is another sort of grouping. Like there was initial genetic drift, and then there was mixture of these groups in various parts of the world to differing capacities, and then those mixtures became sort of ethnicities. These varying degrees of mixtures became like modern day ethnicities, and then the ethnicity formed, and the language formed, and the religion formed, etc., etc. But I mean, it's an interesting process, but there's a lot of nuance to it. And I'm saying X is Mongoloid, X is da 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 da. You know, it's I wouldn't. It's sort of like it's not taking. It's not something. It's not the way these things should be addressed. If you really want to like look into these things, then look into them. Like there are some great anthropological blogs and newspapers and newsletters that for people who want to sort of like get into the basics of this stuff. But you know, to make big generalizing statements using outdated sort of classifying groups is it's kind of bad form, I guess I would say. Invented Peanut Butter says, yes, you're right, in the sense that Eastern Europeans can assimilate better than, quote, brown people. I guess that's me, folks. But not denying that. But I don't want to mix Western and Eastern Europeans in that large. And of course, I'm not proposing that. I was just addressing your comment earlier. I don't think that. I think that Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans are distinct. You know, in their you know, their mental, their physical brains. You know, they're sort of like their like ethnic spirits. Like the spirit of the Eastern European is distinct from the spirit of the Western European man, woman, etc. And then I would say that they're very culturally different, and they have a different religion. You know, there's obviously been this line. The way I look at it is there's Europe, and there's a few lines separating different parts of Europe from one another, but ultimately Europeans belong to one broader, larger group, and they can also be subdivided into smaller groups, which are also quite distinct and should be preserved. I personally support preserving culture down to the smallest level, you know, down to the individual, let's say the temple or the monastery or the church or the you know, the masjid, whatever, you know, synagogue, whatever, what a local place of worship in your neighborhood, you know, should be, you know, I'm down to preserving the ancient, you know, every neighborhood's ancient place of worship, all of the oldest houses in the city. You know, I think that preservation of ancient cultures, ancient things, ancient peoples, ancient customs is a good thing. And I think that this is just even if you look at it from a purely aesthetic perspective, and this is really where ultimately I came to it from the beginning. You know, I was studying art history, and I've interned at several and worked at several museums around the city and galleries around the city, and it's you know, the world is a more beautiful place when things aren't all sort of smushed together and ancient things are preserved. So I would agree when about what Invented Peanut Butter said. And Invented Peanut Butter said brown person equals person of color, not Jews. And that's interesting because are Jews POC? I mean, that's such a, you see, now we really are entering the realm of social constructs. They are and they aren't. It's so nuanced. Like, I don't know. There are some people literally in my family who you could point to and be like, oh, that person's a POC. But then you would look at me and be like, oh, okay, this guy can pass for like, I don't know, like an Italian maybe or something like that. Or maybe I can pass for an I don't know, an Italian, an Iranian, hell. I mean, it doesn't like the whole, when we're getting into this vague realm of social constructs and talking about what people like look like on the surface to the uninformed idiot average person, you know, it's like, it's pointless, you know. I could be a Cypriot. Sorry. Anyway, no, there are Ashkenazi Jews that look more like a POC, quote unquote, than me. Like you can take a Jew from Iraq or Syria and stand them up next to an Ashkenazi Jew, and the Ashkenazi Jew will register to you know, I don't know, like the average New Yorker on the street as a quote POC, and the Mizrahi Jew won't. Like this whole thing, the whole going down this rabbit hole is just really, it's just sort of like an endless trail of bullshit, especially when it comes to like this is why what is white is just such a silly conversation. You know, no one should be talking about what is white. We should be talking about what is European and what isn't. Let's see. Someone says, I have the Jew hair. Sorry, I don't think you could pass for an Italian if your hair is long enough. And yeah, I would agree. Although people have confused me for other things. They call me like Lebanese and stuff like that. But they don't call me They don't call me Lebanese. They start speaking Arabic to me. Is actually what happens. But let's see. Ashkenazi Jews are white passing because in the sense of large European admixture, but they're not white. Confusing, huh? It's like, yeah, how it's like Ashkenazi Jews are a new subrace. And I would not go so far as to say that. I mean, I see what you're saying. Ashkenazi Jews are white passing because of that large European admixture, but they're not white. Like, but there are sometimes Ashkenazi Jews who will have large European admixture and they're not quote white passing. And then there are sometimes, and by white passing, I assume you mean European passing. Like, and then there's sometimes Mizrahi Jews like me who don't have large amounts of European admixture. I'd say I have at most maybe 30. I'm very bad at math. I have at most maybe like 40 to 45% at most European not 40. Whoa. Not 40 to 45%. 25 because I'm 1/4 Ashkenazi. So the Ashkenazi side, let's say hypothetically that Ashkenazi side is only like 5% or something, or only a tiny component of that Ashkenazi side is, let's assume that Ashkenazi side is purely European converts, which they aren't, but let's assume for the purpose of this that they are because I'm bad at math. So that would mean I'm 75% West Asian, Levantine descent. All right. So I am at most, but unlikely, probably less than 25% of non-Levantine European descent. So effectively, this is so autistic. I'm so bad at math. This is effectively, what the fuck point was I making? The European admixture I'm positing from my Ashkenazi side. I'm saying like me. Oh yeah, here's what I was saying. That I would pass for more European passing than many Ashkenazi Jews who are far more genetically European than I am. I am at most 25% of various European admixtures that have been accumulated on my 1/4 Ashkenazi side. All right. So it could be like less than that. It could be it most likely and realistically it's probably like more like 20 or 15%. So I'm like I could do a 23andMe, but I feel like it'd be a waste of money because the thing would be all pink and green. Like it's not going to tell me anything new about myself. But it's kind of cool to find out about the diseases and propensities towards like different types of building certain types of muscle, etc. But yeah, let's see. What Europe? So yeah, effectively what I'm saying is there are Ashkenazi Jews who are more genetically European than me, who look more outwardly Levantine than me, and or portray or have some of the traits that would be associated with being of the Levant. They manifest those traits to a larger degree than me. Those physical traits. I mean, fuck. It's like pardon my language. It's like how you look is such a bad way of judging going by anything. It's like just like we have this amazing genetic technology that's available to our disposal, that's available to us at our disposal. We don't need to eyeball it anymore. We can actually look at things genetically. And IGES says 23andMe is not a genome mapping, i.e. there's nothing really useful to gain from the tests. That's not true. Actually, there is something useful to gain from their tests. You can take the raw genetic data that is captured by the 23andMe test, and you can send it to a better genetic analysis site, which there are plenty of, which are a bit more costly, but you can find out more from it. I need to drink some water. I'll be right back. Hello? Talk about the marranos in Spain. Aren't Oosh. Those are just converts, aren't they? Those are just Jews, Hebrew Jews who converted, or they're crypto Jews or something like that. I'm not very familiar with Sephardic or Ashkenazi history, as a matter of fact. So I'm actually new to these sorts of things. I know more about Mizrahi history, but I can look this up. Yeah, I was right. They were crypto Jews. Yeah, crypto Jews of Iberia. Yeah, what about them? Someone asked me, what do I think about them? I don't think anything about them. I think that they should go back to practicing Judaism openly and repatriate to the Levant. That's what I think about them. I mean, to the degree that they still exist. Do they still exist? I haven't heard about them in large capacities. I don't think they really still exist. They don't really need to still exist. However, I know that a lot of their descendants, there are people who live in Iberia today who will, they'll be looking through all their family's old stuff. They'll get a genetic test and something like Middle Eastern comes up, or Jewish or whatever comes up, or they'll be looking through their family's stuff and they'll find some stuff that has Hebrew writing on it, or like something in something in Hebrew or Ladino or Shuadit or whatever, and whatever. Are Lebanese Phoenicians? Well, as a matter of fact, we actually have later Gator. Another 90 days says, are Lebanese Phoenicians? Pardon me. And I mean, I think that it is fairly reasonable to say that modern day Lebanese people, at least to a degree, are descendants of ancient Phoenicians. And I would say that it's also reasonable to say that Phoenicians are the descendants of ancient sort of Canaanite / proto-Canaanite and associated populations, as are modern Jews, because there's this shared genetic component that's found in Bronze Age Levantine populations. And first of all, there's this linguistic continuity that's found that carries on today with the Hebrew language. And second of all, there's this genetic continuity between the discoveries of Bronze Age skeletons, between them and modern day Lebanese people, modern day Mizrahi Jews, and to the degree that Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardic Jews have shared genetic material with Mizrahi Jews, is also found in those populations as well. You can also find something similar in Lebanese Jews, etc. Do ancient Canaanites have much in common with Arabs genetically? Now, Arabs is another one of those annoying terms, like, quote, white. It's one of those terms that you can endlessly sort of hem and haw about and never really get down to anything meaningful. But let's just say Arabs, we're going to say in this sense Arabians. So this is people from the Arabian Gulf, and this is people from the Hejaz. and this is people from all over Arabia, right? So these are Arabs, indigenous speakers of Arabic languages. Do ancient Canaanites have much in common with Arabs genetically? There are similarities and there are differences. I think they belong to the two groups split from one another at one point or another. The two genetic groups of I guess sort of like this sort of Levantine / Anatolian / this quote northern West Asian group split from this quote southern West Asian group, but there are similarities and there are differences. There's a common sort of origin, but they're different. You know, they look different, a bit different, but they also look a bit similar. Like I would say that like looking at someone from the Levant, like a Lebanese guy or me, compared to a guy from like Arabia, you know, or the Hijaz even, or somewhere like that, like they would look a bit different from me, but they would also look a bit similar to me in many ways. And genetically they would be different and similar, as it were. Let's see. Are Ashkenazim less quote white? I'm assuming you mean European. Are Ashkenazim less European than Greeks or Sicilians? Yes. Okay, so this is interesting. Like if you actually put them on a PCA, if you put Ashkenazi Jews on a PCA plot, or if you examine, let's say, their Y DNA alone, you'll find that they are less. If you take a look at, you'll find that they overlap with, but are trending towards. They're basically quote between these sort of peripheral, far southern Mediterranean populations like Cypriots and Maltese and Sicilians, but they're sort of partially like overlapping with them, or partially quote towards them, and partially quote towards Near Eastern, specifically Levantine populations like Mizrahi Jews, Druze, Samaritans, etc. Rah Avis, good to have you back. Finally caught the stream. Mr. Coolmug says Jews are Jews. Yeah, I would agree. Exactly. Jews are Jews. Jews are Jews. Jews are Levantines, and Jews are West Asians. It goes in concentric circles. Weebabu says, what about North African Arabs? There is this admixture of West Asians, of West Asian Semites that's found in North Africans, but North Africans are also genetically distinct from their genetically distinct branch of the sort of Afro-Asiatic genetic linguistic family. They're distinct. There is admixture found, but they're also distinct. But I think that it's incredibly nuanced, and it's actually incredibly interesting. You know, I could go on for a while about this stuff and not really. And I'm not a good resource on these things, so I think that you should probably just look it up. I mean, I can sort of describe what I've seen numerous times on numerous genetic studies, but I'm not very good at describing such things because I don't know very much about genetics and I don't devote very much of my time to it. It's just sort of like something I'll occasionally just like flip through an article and sort of get a rough sense of how these things work. Later Gator says, how accurate are Y-DNA markers? Y-DNA markers are good for one thing, and that is, I mean, obviously like paternal lineages, but that's really useful when you're looking at movements of people or conquest or the like, because usually because groups of men tend to move a lot and sort of spread their seed, as it were, especially in ancient times. So what you'll find is that a consistent Y-DNA lineage, your Y-DNA lineage, it marks. It's a good way of deducing things like movements of people by like mass migration or conquest or things like that. Later Gator says, if there's a huge amount of overlap, why can't about something Jews being quote less white than Sicilians? I don't understand your comment. You're going to need to rephrase that. Weeaboo says, hold on. All right. Okay. I can go into the Sicilian thing. All right. Actually, if you break it down, a PCA plot is okay. There was migration from the Levant into Europe before the Levant was like culturally, genetically, linguistically, and this has been going on for a while. There were different periods of migration as well. For a very, very long time, farming peoples of various types have been flowing westward from the Levant. These populations split, and you can actually look and see genetic mutations on like Y-DNA markers. This is actually where it's useful to see that while there is while they do overlap when they're put on one of these on one of these cluster analyses that there is overlap, that effectively their overlap is not a good way of saying. Like, here's an example. How do I put it? Like, an African American person and a Ethiopian person might cluster together, but for very different reasons, and the two they might like overlap on a PCA plot, or even like, let's say, a Somali person and an African American person might overlap on a PCA plot, or like but that I can't explain this, but that doesn't mean anything. Like there's two very different stories being told here, and that's why you need to do a more comprehensive and different types of analyses and look at it in more depth than just looking at like cluster analyses. What is another 90 days to change this says, what is the conclusive answer to the Lemba tribe? I know that they've been proven to have Semitic markers, but if it's Hebrew, Phoenician, or as recently as Arab traders, no one knows. No one knows. All we know is that they have West Asian genetic ancestry, fairly significant amounts of it, and that's all we know. I mean, I would love it if more research were done. I actually might just look into it. I remember looking into this about 5 years ago, and there was absolutely nothing conclusive there. I think it's interesting, and I think that looking at their customs is quite interesting. I'm inclined to believe it. There's no reason I shouldn't. I mean, at the very least, we have even if they are not descended from the ancient Hebrews, they are descended from West Asian peoples to a degree. So that's all we know, is that they are West Asian, which makes me. And it's interesting because usually populations that self-identify as Jewish carry minor to fairly significant amounts of West Asian, specifically Levantine, but also more broadly West Asian genetic ancestry. Like that's just the thing, because the whole like diaspora thing, etc. If someone is not born to a Jewish mother, can they still be Jewish? I mean, I don't know. Ask a rabbi. You'll get millions of different opinions. Like, I don't know, but I don't care about being Jewish, but I would consider that person, if you are born to a Jewish mother, I would consider you to be Hebrew. I would consider you to be half Hebrew, at least. Let's say if you were born to a Jewish mother and a European father, you would be half Hebrew, half European, or some part Hebrew, if let's say the Jewish component was admixed, and some part European or whatnot else. But let's say if the father was a Samaritan man and the wife was a Jewish Hebrew woman, the child would be 100% Hebrew. But I don't believe that they would be considered Jewish. So it's just food for thought. Later Gator says, isn't it possible Semites migrated north to Khazaria? Yeah, it is possible. I mean, and I think that there were. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, sure, it's totally possible Semites. I mean, Jews went everywhere. Jews ended up in Khazaria. That's probably why some of the Khazar elites or nobles or whoever ended up converting during that conversion period. That's probably why some of them converted, is due to contact with Jews and exposure to their ideology. I also hear that to a degree they adopted Judaism because as sort of a buffer strategy between the Christian and Islam, as they were situated between Christendom and the Islamic world, the Islamic Ummah. So a guy says from what I Weeb Abu says to a guy says, from what I understood, it's very hard to convert. Yes, it is very hard to convert to Judaism, but I would say that if you wanted to convert today, it's easier than ever today. So get on that. If you really want to be a Jew for whatever reason, I mean, it's really your calling. I mean, I would do it today rather than any time in the past, or probably any time in the future. We might be living in a time when it's uniquely opportunely easy to become a Jew, because for instance, there are more people than ever today are becoming Jews. Judaism is not a proselytizing religion. Very few people became Jews unless they were marrying Jews throughout history. 14 watching OFA. Yeah, and a guy says they make you jump through lots of hoops. probably to guarantee you'll raise the part Jew child with a strong sense of Jewishness. Yeah, obviously, yeah. And then later Gator says, thoughts on Scythians being a lost tribe? No, I don't think so. I think that Scythians are Indo-Europeans, Aryans, Proto-Slav area, Proto-Slav, Central Asian, Aryan steppe people, and they probably genetically bore the R1A marker mutation on their male lineage. I may be wrong about this, but this is just a hunch. They were probably Indo-European speakers who are related to Slavs, Aryan steppe peoples, etc., and thus to a degree peoples found in the subcontinent, South Asia, Persia, etc. Agay says, should myself and other white identitarians not see Jews as a whole and as an enemy wholesale? Obviously, I understand the average Jew has nothing to do with subverting my people. I mean, I don't know. I don't care. I mean, shit. It doesn't matter if you see Jews as an enemy. The fact of the matter is that I don't believe that a minority civilization, especially a very different minority civilization, can easily I don't think a West Asian or an East Asian or a West African population can harmoniously exist as a minority within the Western world. Really, necessarily, I mean, I think that there will always inevitably be conflict, whether that's like hard conflict, quote unquote, or sort of a soft, passive conflict. I think that there will be conflicting interests, and unless there's like some total extreme full assimilation, which people aren't really inclined to do, it's instinctively people aren't really predisposed to throw away the sort of culture and genetics and whatnot that their ancestors have been cultivating for thousands of years. It's I think that it doesn't matter whether a Westerner perceives Jews as, quote, the enemy. I think that fundamentally, aside from a very small subset of a few Naxalt exceptions, I think that ultimately the role that a minority group, such as Jews, but also, let's say, such as other groups in the West, a role that other groups in the West play. I think that, like, let's say Roma Gypsies, I think that ultimately there will always be the relationship will not be a perfectly harmonious symbiotic relationship. It will often be riddled with antagonism, and I think that is why I prefer the amicable divorce strategy. I think that ultimately the question of enemy or not enemy doesn't really matter. There are a lot of Jews with perfectly harmless intentions, but their actions are not functionally harmless. So at the end of the day, what does it really matter? In later, Gator, hold on. Later, Gator says Khazars were described as being fair-skinned and white. Actually, if you take a look at Khazars, ancient, as a matter of fact, on a similar note, ancient Jews were described as being, quote, ruddy or red-skinned or something like that, as well as ancient Phoenicians who had settled in Carthage. They were described as being red-skinned, rosy of feature, etc., etc. Okay, like that. The quote fair-skinned phenotype is something that's existed in many places outside of Europe. Europe does not have a monopoly on pallor. But just to address later Gator's comments, Jews were described as Khazars were described as being fair-skinned as white and white. If you want to look at the Khazar, if you want to see how the Khazars looked, there actually is a Khazar bust, and you can actually go look it out. And it looks like they're a Central Asian population to me, or Central Asian / ancient North Eurasian-y kind of hybrid, quote, Caucasoid / Mongoloid, I guess is what a layman would call it, population. They just look sort of like a Turkic / maybe even Indo-Aryan / Central Asian, Altaic, whatever. It looks like one of those types of populations. There's a bust of a Khazar warrior. Go check it out. Someone says, later Gator says there are no white Chinese. Oh, look up Uyghurs. There are Uyghurs who have who are genetically I mean, obviously they're genetically different from, let's say, someone from, let's say, a Hakka person from, like southeast, more in the southeast-ish region. But like, you see what I'm saying, right? China's a huge country. It's pretty diverse, and in Western China, you can get people with lighter features. As I said earlier, Europeans do not have a monopoly on pallor. Sorry, A guy says, sorry, at times I feel super sparky and emotional when I'm reading literature such as The Culture of Critique, the content of which having to do with Jews subverting Gentiles. Yeah, for me, The Culture of Critique, I mean, I took a look at it, and frankly, The Culture of Critique really is just telling me stuff that I already know. I don't think that, for me, though, I think that the way that it presents it is, it's not really something to be particularly angry about. I mean, it's just sort of the inherent nature of group dynamics. And I think that, an obvious solution presents itself. That solution has already partially been enacted. Now we just need to take it to its logical conclusion, I would posit. I think that for me, the only emotions that this whole situation brings to me is just immense sadness at the fact that, an ancient civilization, or civilization is perhaps a bit too lofty, an ancient people have been brought to their knees by this tragedy of diaspora, this tragedy of multiculturalism, of minority living. Ultimately, the foe to me is multiculturalism, the existence of the minority situation of as anyone in the world is experiencing it, and et cetera, et cetera. It's to me, it's not something that I feel is particularly unique. I mean, it's not the only thing that's unique to Jews about it is the fact that we've been in this shitty situation longer than the others, and it's warped us worse, I would say. Hold on. Another 90. I'm getting a text message. Fuck. No. Turks came from the Altai region, but they started admixing early on. Tuvans and Yakuts are probably the few Turkic peoples out there. A guy says, I also think there are a lot of alt writers who aren't entirely honest with themselves, their feelings, or their dispositions towards acting on those feelings. Later Gator says, Uyghurs are not cynic. Uyghurs are not cynic. Yeah, I agree. Uyghurs are not cynic. Like, yeah, I'm aware of that, but they're in China. Like, someone said something about China, so I was responding to the thing about, China. I assume they were talking about, like, the modern polity China. People's Republic of China, PRC. Later Gator says, Kevin McDonald explains the obvious, but he assumes Jews are a monolith, which has never been the case. Oh, yeah, that's obviously true, but I think that there's a general trend towards Jews, just as there would be a general trend with any minority group towards sort of advocating with those interests, I guess. And those interests are naturally, if you're a minority, those interests naturally are reducing, let's say, the in-group preferential sentiments of the indigenous majority populace. Like, something like that, for instance, is something that you would wish to promote because it makes your life easier. You're not getting hassled on your walk to work. You're not getting spat on the street. You're not getting etc. Like things like that. Like I mean, that's like how the Jew would view it and rationalize it from my experience. It's like it's perfectly natural, even though ultimately it kind of end up manifesting itself as a malevolent civilization destroying force. Nadem says Scythians were Iranic speakers who ended up assimilating to Slavs in the West and Turkic peoples in the East. Yeah, that pretty much copies. Let's see. Weeaboo says, I remember McDonald explicitly stating during an interview that Jews are not a monolith. Yeah, I don't think necessarily myself that Jews are a monolith, that McDonald thinks Jews are a monolith. In fact, I actually haven't heard that very much of McDonald outside of his writing, so but I'm not inclined to think that he thinks Jews are a monolith. I mean, like, usually he seems like a fairly intelligent guy. He seems like he can understand nuance. I mean, he's not a terribly good orator. He's not very well spoken, but I mean, I'm one to talk. Like Lebanese breaking out all over the place, but he's not very well spoken. So I don't really generally listen to him when he sort of speaks, clarifying his opinions outside of his literature. But yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to believe, yeah, of course, he recognizes nuance in all situations. Invented Peanut Butter says the alt-right has a yellow fever problem. Never took those people seriously. I mean, I don't know what. I assume you're an African American guy. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, like, all right. It's no meme, my friend. The vast majority of them go on Discord, post pics of Japanese girls and claim, why can't Western girls be like them? I don't know what Discords you're on, mate. I'm not privy to this. Anyway, I'm probably going to wrap this up unless there are any further questions. I have some stuff to do later on today. I'm going to go down to a university downtown and hang out with a friend of mine at a local dumpling bar. All right. Any last comments? All right, so it's been an absolute pleasure, everyone, including this. I mean, I feel bad though because there's 16 people watching. I feel like I should entertain you. I should entertain you people. You want your bread and circuses, don't you? But I reckon if everyone's out of questions, I'll just conclude the chat. Jew being cheap with time. Okay, after a jibe like that, I can't back down. I guess I'll have to keep going for a little bit longer. Here. If anyone cares to join me, they can actually simply enter the chat themselves. Go for it. Yeah, if anyone wants to hop in here and keep this sinking raft afloat, by all means, go ahead. Let's see. Is there anything else that's on my mind? This is. Oh yeah. If anyone here has a line to Ryan Folk, aka the alternative hypothesis, or for that matter, anyone who's interested in genetics, like as it were, I don't know, I'd have on like Awale Abdi, I'd have on like Razib Khan, although people like that are probably a bit out of my league and probably wouldn't want to associate themselves with me. But it would be really nice to have someone who actually knows something about genetics, unlike me, come and talk about the genetic differences between European populations and West Asian populations. Because I know that a lot of West Asian populations have components that differentiate them, or have higher degrees of components that differentiate them from Europeans. Like, for instance, there's this component known as basal Eurasian, which is, it's a hypothetical component, right? So like there hasn't been a pure basal Eurasian sample found, but it's found in other populations. Like for instance, ancient Natufians, and then found, I think, to a rather high degree in what do you call them? Why am I blanking on this? They're found in a rather high degree to in Sardinians today, and then it's also found in some degree in I think in a different form, if I'm not mistaken, in or somewhat different, like mixed form in Near Eastern populations of today. So I'm interested in this basal Eurasian component. If anyone wants to come on and talk about that, and I'm really interested in just talking about like the genetic and possible like sort of cognitive and thus perceptive differences of Near Easterners and Europeans. I think that it's something that really never gets explored. People talk all the time about the differences between sub-Saharan Africans, Europeans, and specifically Northwest Europeans, and Northeast Asians. That's sub-Saharan Africans, specifically West Africans, and basically like people go on and on about that, and I think that's beating a dead horse. But I'm very interested in the far more subtle distinctions between the I guess West Asian genetic sort of West Asian genetic to the degree that there's a differentiation between Europeans and West Asians genetically, to what extent that difference manifests itself in terms of let's say things like cognition, or even smaller things like propensity towards certain types of athleticism or stature, or things of the like. There are all sorts of things, or your personality traits. Even like, for instance, you'll find that certain types of personality traits are heritable. Like a lot of what's in the brain is very heritable, and we're finding out more and more how heritable what's in the brain is, and it's very interesting. And I'm interested in just sort of, again, like these sort of what makes Europeans different from West Asians, what makes them similar. Let's see what's going on. Masaman. Yeah, I'd like to talk to Masaman. Someone says to me, have you thought of talking to Thinking Ape? Yeah, I've talked to Thinking Ape, dude. You're like behind the times. Like, what? Like, I'm gonna do another talk with him soon, probably about New York City. But here, where is it? Yeah, a guy says, have you ever thought of chatting with Stardust / Thinking Ape? Yeah, I have talked to him before. Look up Babylonian Hebrew on his Babylonian Hebrew Stardust or Babylonian Hebrew Thinking Ape, and you'll find it. Later Gator says, what is ruddy skin? It means pale or dark. It means pale, and it's not just pale skin. Like, for instance, it's not a pale beige they're talking about. They're talking about ruddy, like full on, like skin that has a reddish tinge or a peachy tinge to it, because the individual is very fair skinned. Like, for instance, I would describe myself as having somewhat ruddy skin, like a darker ruddy skin. And I'm of overwhelmingly Levantine genetic extraction. I would surmise, or at the very least, West Asian genetic extraction. And I think that and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about rosy skin or ruddy skin earlier. And that's what they're talking about in terms of the Phoenicians, the ancient records of the Phoenicians. Nat Sloshheimer says Ryan is probably open to talk to most people, and yeah, I know he's open to talk to most people, but he's a busy man and he has stuff to do in his real life, and I'm kind of a lot dumber than him, to be quite honest. So I feel like ultimately I'd just be sort of wasting his time. Also, he doesn't really seem to focus on he doesn't really seem to focus or really care about nuance between, like, let's say Middle Easterners and Europeans, considering I've heard him numerous times lump, although this may have just been for the sake of the convenience for the one argument, or let's say in the video he was making, I've seen him just say sort of, quote, brown Caucasoids, as if it's one sort of general broad population. And I think that and while he might be trying to sort of lump there for the purpose of convenience, I think that the nuances of these things should be explored. And it's obvious why I think that. It's because I'm Middle Eastern. I think that it would be really cool for me to learn about the uniqueness of Middle Easterners, genetically speaking. I'm gonna actually literally just gonna look up what the name of my podcast with Stardust is right now, so that people can refer to it. Oh, great, my computer isn't working. That's annoying. All right, that's weird. Hold on. For some reason, my mouse just stopped working. All right. Yeah, so this is going to be called Deracination and Diaspora with Babylonian Hebrew. And it's going to be found on the Thinking-Ape channel, capital T, capital A. He describes me as a Jewish repatriationist with highly unusual ideas. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with him. These ideas, as I said earlier, are not usual amongst diaspora Jews today, because the diaspora Jews who wanted to repatriate have all repatriated, and the ones who are currently here right now are enjoying their cushy lives in the West. So I agree. I do espouse very unusual ideas for a man of my circumstance. Someone said, bring on Medicare, all hail Jim. I would love to have Medicare on, but again, I don't really have a line to these people. Since my Skype account stopped working, I don't really even have a line to people like Millennial Woes or Reactionary Expat anymore. There's one channel that I do want to have some sort of stream with at some point, but it's he's quite busy. Again, these people who have quite poppin' and active channels don't really have a lot of time. But that channel is called From Nothing, and it's a very good channel. I think From Nothing is the best African history channel on the entire internet, because it focuses on actual history. So I think that the guy who's steering the ship over at Nothing, or From Nothing rather, is doing a good job, and I'd love to have a talk with him sometime on my channel. All right, let's see. Comments: Germanic forest people versus Mediterranean civilization master race. I mean, I'm biased. I won't endorse that. Well, I am clearly biased on the matter. Let's see. Bring on Medicare. Yeah. Only Anglos are white. Everyone else is non-white. Yep. Jews are white if you can hook me up with Abigail Shapiro's milkers. Yeah, people are raving about Ben Shapiro's sister. To me, she's quite plain. She's not very thick, and she's I mean, she's all right. I mean, I'm not trying to insult her. You know, she's a pretty young woman, but she's just not really my type. Hold on one moment. I'm going to blow my nose. Haha. All right, I'm back. Later Gator asks me, "Are you fucking ginger?" No, I'm not ginger. I have sort of a dark auburn hair, a very dark auburn hair that could be mistaken for brown, but it actually is what I would describe as sort of a dark auburn, because if you shine a light through it, it looks kind of reddish orangey. Let's see. Jews killed Jesus. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit more nuanced than that, but sure. Gingers are Untermensch. Gingers are the master race. Actually, if you want Mitiker on, just ask him on Twitter. It says Supreme Gentleman. Which is actually has a great profile picture. It's Elliot Rodger with a Supreme logo in front of his eyes. And unfortunately, I am not very active on Twitter. Like, I don't really remember the password to get into my Twitter account. So I mean, shit. I may get around to reactivating my Twitter eventually. In which case, I will ask Mr. Medicare, because I enjoy listening to his the dulcet tones of his voice. I enjoy seeing his little presentations. He's basically something like Encyclopedia Dramatica mixed with Kiwi Farms, rendered animate and granted a voice and a clean, crisp microphone with nice audio quality and an internet connection. Who makes videos? I mean, I enjoy listening to what he has to say. He's funny. He's an amusing guy. Who says that? Let's see. NR Expat is friendly. Millennial Woes is a fag. Who's NR Expat? Oh, reactionary expat. Yeah. Neo-reactionary. I mean, he isn't. He's reactionary expat. I'm not sure if he's neo-reactionary expat. He is associated with the neo-reactionaries, but I'm not even sure if he would. I'm not sure if he's more of a reactionary in the classical sense or a neo-reactionary. I'd say that he takes elements of both. Probably leans a bit more towards neo-reactionary, though, because classical reactionaries are sort of more the traditionalist types, I reckon. who are always talking about the transcendent and whatnot, kind of like me. Supreme Gentleman says he'll accept most invites. Yeah, it's at We Was Metacurry. Yeah, I'll actually sure. I'll actually see if I can get into my Twitter account later today and shoot him a message. Wait, do I DM on Twitter, or do I I don't even know how to use Twitter? That's the thing. I really genuinely am kind of at a loss. Now people are arguing about some X and so is pro thought. Pro thought. Someone says. Kyle Dawson says, does Mexican/French count as being Anglo? Why wouldn't? Doesn't Anglo mean of the Angles, of the people? That's a very specific people, isn't it? But I mean, I guess it can also mean if you're an English speaker of European descent. Sometimes people just refer to all English speakers of European descent as Anglos. So I guess in that sense, if you're considering you would be of European descent and speaking English, you would fall under that broad sort of casual slang term of Anglo. Let's see. People are saying, wait, what was it? Hold on. Later Gator says, I don't like McDonald anymore because he's also pro-thought. Well, the whole thought thing, I was actually really not on the internet for it, so I kind of missed it. I mean, I haven't really been following what the whole thought situation is. I mean, I don't know. Thought. It's a nice word, you know. It's a nice cultural appropriation from sort of the hip hop sphere, I guess, or sort of the I mean, not hip hop sphere per se. When I say hip hop, I mean sort of of the ilk of world star hip hop rather than actually hip hop. I'm just saying let's just say on the streets of New York, I heard thought many a time coming from the mouth of a POC, shall we say, far before thought was one of these terms that blew up amongst sort of the various European advocates of the internet. A guy says it's a whole lot of nothing, man. Yeah, that's what it seems like. I support free thought. Later Gator says, I'm not an autist who thinks premarital sex is a sin. Yeah, I mean, premarital sex in women specifically, I would say, is something to just worry about if you're trying to sort of organize a nice, healthy society. Because there was this interesting study that I saw, and I'm not sure if this has been replicated, so take it with a grain of salt, but it shows that divorce rate increases, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, almost exponentially, or something along those lines, or it increases to a dramatically or semi-exponentially based on the amount of partners a woman has had premaritally. So for instance, the higher the amount of partners she has had before marriage, the higher her chance of divorce within that first marriage increases. So that's just it's just some food for thought. I mean, food for thought. It's just probably something interesting that should be thought about. So it's probably best, even if you're looking at it from this purely material perspective, just saying I'm trying to organize a nice civilization that kind of runs nicely. Even if you're looking at it from that hyper materialist perspective, it would be prudent to prevent specifically young women, but young people in general, from just having loads and loads and loads of premarital sex, because the more premarital sex you have, the more, specifically in the instance of young women, couldn't find anything about young men, the more of a chance you have of marriages being unsuccessful in the future. Anyway, welcome to the chat, people who have come in. Oh, brilliant! It's Dubby, Imperial, Octavian, and Oscar.
Hey,
yeah, how's everyone doing? I'm just going to answer a few more questions in the thing here. Just. Orini is a heretic. Orini would bitch slap you. Thought. Yes, I believe thought means that hoe. No, wait, yeah, that hoe over there. Yeah. Anyone who understands gender dynamics doesn't need to meddle with the thought shit. The issue isn't degeneracy, quote, it's feminized femdom nationalism destroying the alt-right. Well, that's not really my battle. I'll leave the sides of that to it. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the increasing... Theron asks, what are your thoughts on the increasing popularity of Jordan Peterson and the slow but inevitable death of pop feminism? Later Gator says, Jordan Peterson is a classical liberal faggot. What are your thoughts on the increasing popularity of Jordan Peterson? Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's cool, I guess. He's a smart enough guy. I mean, he doesn't say anything particularly novel, I guess. But he's a good speaker. I mean, yeah, he's a good speaker. I mean, I don't agree with him politically, really, or even agree with some of his assertions, but I think that he's a good speaker and he's a good thinker. Kyle Dawson says, "Why has your voice changed over the last year and a half?" Because I got a new microphone. It changed just as of this stream, because I got a new microphone, because I'm using a nice Blue Yeti as opposed to some phone mic or whatever I was doing all the past streams from. Aurini is more... now people are just arguing about Aurini and clean your room. All right, so I'm just going to be back in 1 moment. I'm going to put my boots on, and then I'm shortly going to leave. But I'll keep the stream running for the next few minutes in case anyone else has anything to say. Yeah. I can no longer stream from the phone because my phone has been broken over the course of the past few weeks, or the past week and a little bit prior to that. So unfortunately this stream will have to be terminated soon. I'm not sure if Peterson is worthy of being called an orator. I kid. I mean, sure, why not? W, do you want to say anything to the fans? I know they love you, especially I'm awesome. All right, so let's see. Farron says, "Hey Dubby, can I cuck your boyfriend?" A Geis says, now people are just arguing about what, quote, the alt-right means. Or he needs a heretic, saying because he said lust is a minor sin.
Hello?
Hello, Dubby.
Right.
Farron asks,
I'm
can
here.
I cuck your boyfriend?
The topic is, are Jews white? And what is the
Hello?
answer of Babylonian?
No, Farron asks you a question. The answer to the question, are Jews white, is it's a dumb question. The question should be, are Jews European? The answer is Jews are not European. Yes, Jews are pale-skinned, quote, Caucasoids, or pale-skinned, on average, pale-skinned people of West Eurasian descent. Case closed. Jews are not Europeans. Some Jews are admixed with Europeans. Yeah, pretty obvious, pretty straightforward.
Okay, but are Jews spiritually white?
No. Moving on. Or most, I would say that I would posit that most are not really. And let's see. Yeah, there's a question for you. Farron asks, "Can I cuck your boyfriend?"
Did Farron actually ask that? Oh,
yes.
I don't have a boyfriend, and I don't believe in. Well, I don't support homosexual behavior. But if I did, and if I had a boyfriend, that would be a very inappropriate question to ask. And I strongly disapprove of you asking that in the most serious terms possible.
All right, there's the answer. So, Lit Sigil says, "Do you mind if I play Civ 4 while I listen to you guys?" I mean, yeah, that's what streams like those are for, isn't it? You know what I really later Gator says,
you have to pay attention to us with absolutely no distractions and just talk for every word of wisdom and insight.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, you must give us your undivided attention. All right, here's something that I would like to do. What I want to do is I want to go on the Kumite / Andy Worski show. That I think would be very entertaining. I would love to go on one of those two things. I just found out about them. I find it interesting. I'd love to talk to Destiny. I think Destiny is annoying. He's an annoying little bug man. I don't like him. There's something viscerally repellent I find about Destiny. However, I would love. This is
Babylonian Hebrew showing his true thoughts about white people. He thinks they're repellent bug men.
Yeah. Also, not particularly smart to call someone repellent just before you say that you'd really love to speak with them. It doesn't really open up the conversation much.
Well, see, I'm trying to bait him. I'm trying to bait him into a conversation by goading him on the one hand with insults and other provocative statements, whilst also extending an open hand and an open invitation to my channel. I'm sure Destiny and I have a lot in common. For instance, we're both diminutive Mediterranean manlets with annoying voices.
Wait, I thought you were like surprisingly tall.
Yeah, but there's no point in telling one my actual height on the internet because people are just going to say that I'm a manlet if I start saying things anyway. So better just say I'm a manlet because I'm a spiritual manlet.
Yeah, you can have solidarity with like physical manlets in that sense.
The point is right. Okay.
Precisely.
Would you consider Lebanese people white?
Could be,
No, I would consider Lebanese people pale-skinned Levantines who practice Christianity, Islam, Druidism, etc. Lebanese is just a demonym for the people who live in Lebanon, and many of those Lebanese people who are indigenous Levantine people, they're fair-skinned peoples of West Eurasian descent, Levantine peoples, but they are not European, and so they're fair-skinned Caucasoids, yes. They are not Europeans. That puts them in a similar category with Jews. Some Lebanese are admixed with Europeans, even just in the same way that many Ashkenazi Jews are admixed with Europeans. Does that make them European? No, it makes them a hybrid population, as Razib Khan describes it.
So it makes them Euromutts.
No, but most Lebanese people aren't actually. Most Lebanese people are actually largely indigenous Levantine descent. I think the Crusader influence is largely overstated, although I know that there is some, like it's not completely negligible, that there is some European genetic material found amongst Syrians, Lebanese, etc.
Oh well, the Lebanese, it's not like a broad thing in the whole population. It's specifically like Greek ancestry concentrated on the Maronite population.
Indeed, yes. And I think Lebanese Christians more broadly also have European admixture, although small amounts of it in some instances, although I may be incorrect about that. Someone here, let's see.
Okay, on to more important topics. Ed, what is your experience with being a manlet in a linklet's body? How does that make you sympathize more with the transgendered population?
I don't know. I would say it's the same way as feeling like a Magian in an Apollonian Faustian civilization that has forgotten itself. Anyway, let's see. Someone says, no, please don't. And I assume they're talking about Destiny. No, please don't talk to Destiny. And no, the only reason I want to talk to him is just because I think he's disingenuous and I want to nail him. And I think that I work in a similar sort of fast-paced and slimy and slippery way when I get into such conversations with people. So I think that I would be a good opponent for him. He talks to people who are a little slower than him, I generally find, if not a good deal slower than him. Although they may be correct, they aren't able to deal with his sheer output of sort of verbiage and that you see what I'm saying, right? It's just in the same way that it's not very easy to come out looking good in a debate against Ben Shapiro. He just sort of hits you with a long paragraph.
You're gonna out verbal IQ him then.
I'll Jew the Jew, the crypto Jew.
I mean, that's basically what I'm planning on. I think that the thing that annoys me about Destiny is
I don't even know who Destiny is.
It's just he's just talking about he just keeps saying Nazi this, racist that, white supremacist. He's using all these terms that don't have any meaning and that are slur terms. And I particularly object to his labeling of at one point he effectively he has this view in his mind that all manifestations of identity, specifically all manifestations of indigenous identity, indigenous pride, let's say, for instance, are inherently bellicose or belligerent. He seems to have that notion in his head, and I think that's completely preposterous. And I would just simply, sort of come on and say to him, and I would also make the argument to him. I think that see, the thing is that I find irritating is that when people talk to people like Destiny or many other people, they are stupid. Well, I mean, it's the pro self-determination argument does not need to be and should not be, unless you know exactly what you're doing, should not be muddled or mixed with the there are biological differences between populations argument. When people start conflating those two arguments, it's easy to be made to look. Sorry, hold on one second.
What is...
Are North Koreans Jews? Well, North Koreans are manlets.
Yeah, I mean, more importantly, are North Koreans white? To which I would give the resounding answer, yes, they are white.
White people are gay. Honestly, in Western countries, white people are the least gay. Asians and blacks are more gay in Western countries. If you go to Africa or Asia, they have a lower percentage of gay people.
Yeah, but that's because whites are the carriers of the gay virus. So I mean, it's yeah.
I haven't spoken to Aaron. I haven't really been on Skype. You should go on Discord.
Who is Aaron?
And join our edgy groups. Except we don't allow women, so it's not going to work.
Yeah. Honestly, women shouldn't even be allowed on the internet. I mean, there's access to far too much, lewdness and rudeness, all sorts of things to corrupt the mind of a woman. Just sort of. It's just concentrate on the home. Don't bother yourself with advanced technology. and to weeb Abu, I mean, Stop being a weeb, first of all, you'll burn in hell. But the saint is Saint Siloa in Navathos.
No, is Bab's death panel being unironically funny or actually serious?
We are being 100% serious.
Uh-huh.
All right, I'm back now, and I just quickly want to say to everyone in the chat, pick up where I was talking. Yeah, specifically when arguing against Destiny, but arguing against other people. Like, I haven't seen anyone make to Destiny the quote pure HBD or race realist, or basically acknowledge the pure evolutionary / hereditary argument to him. I haven't seen people do that, or make the pure I have, but like those people, or I haven't seen people make the pure quote untainted self-determination argument. I'd like to make one or both of those arguments to him, and I think that he would individually probably agree with at least the human genetic biodiversity argument, and then the other one, it's a matter of preference. But I think that he the reason why he has this, he always says like white supremacist, racist, Nazi stuff like that, is because these two arguments don't need to be conflated. Okay, Putnam wrote a great book. It's called Bowling Alone. It's a not a very long book. I highly recommend everyone read it. That book alone to me is pretty much all you need to go off of to say that that combined with things like the clearly observable behaviors of groups like Roma Gypsies or African Americans or Jews, etc., etc., etc. I think things like that clearly show and make a great case on their own for why self-determination rather than sharing polities is a good idea. I think that's, and you don't need to ever invoke, IQ or hereditarianism or their biological differences between populations. You could say, you know what I mean?
The spiritual destiny of white people.
Yeah, there's no need to go to any of those places. You can just merely make it on data like that. People are less happy. People are simply less happy, and people are also, I believe, there's data that shows that people are less creative. There's less creativity when there's more diversity. So it's like, people are less happy. People are less creative. People participate less in their communities. They are more likely to bowl alone. That's what Putnam says. That's why the book is called Bowling Alone.
Basically, people we descend, from tribal. Tribes, and that's just how we work. We identify with people who are similar to us, and there's nothing, diversity doesn't add anything, it creates problems. And there's no, unless like there's this like weird moral universalism, but there's no fundamental moral reason that you have to include like diverse people in your society. Like, you shouldn't like hurt them or kill them or denigrate them for no reason, but there's no reason you need to import Africans into your country. That's basically it's really a simple question.
Hold on. But I think there's more nuance to it than that, because with Africans, like regardless of Africans, like let's say you could have populations like you could have a Near Eastern population like Jews, which are genetically relatively, compared to let's say East Asians or Africans, quite similar to Europeans. You see, and you could say, this population should hypothetically, like, sort of, let's say, I guess, assimilate very easily, like, but there's much more to it than just the genetics. It's I think that
well, like if you have like a real culture, like the really prior to traditions and heritage, like a bunch of foreigners with their own traditions and heritage aren't really going to assimilate. It's going to be pretty hard. Whereas if you just have like a very like consumerist culture, and you assimilate, by making money and just caring about.
I see what you're saying.
And that's why I think assimilation, was able to work, pretty well in America. European immigrants. There was Europeans from different countries and different heritages and all that, but they basically came here to work and make money. And the American dream wasn't having this great attachment to your ancestors and traditions and religion. It was about, the American dream was making money. You come here to make money. And so it depends what kind of country you have. Like a country like that, like I guess you could have assimilation and white people. It was able to work out where white people were just kind of able to put aside their kind of nationalities for the most part and assimilate. Whereas, and it even happens to an extent with other races, it makes that less and less likely. It's not impossible. It's not like black people can't assimilate to a kind of consumerist culture, but they're like it's very obvious. Like if you're in a room of white people, there's a black person. Like obviously that person's different. Like you don't have to be a race realist to know to kind of see that there's a bit of tension there.
Yeah, there's more variety in how someone can express virtue than how someone can express depravity. America is easy to assimilate into because the common lowest standards of all people is much closer together than the highest standards of all different peoples. It sort of diverges as it goes to the top. You get, I mean, even just in the case of something like art or beauty, there are many different beautiful forms and arts and styles of architecture, but all of the ugliness seems to ultimately be drawn towards the same sort of thing. It's the same thing with cultures.
Yeah.
All failing cultures look alike.
Wow, that's brilliantly put.
But successful cultures can, they can vary a lot more.
Oh, it's like the opposite of Tolstoy, which was all happy families are the same, but it's the interesting ones that are the dysfunctional ones.
Maybe it's the case for individuals or families. I'm just talking about the level of cultures.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm just saying there's a famous quote from Anna Karenina, whatever you pronounce that.
Karenina.
I don't know. Tolstoy was a dick anyway. he was literally an anarchist.
Yeah, I feel like morally though Tolstoy does make some interesting points in his works.
I don't know. I think honestly, any pacifist is morally suspect.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're reading Diet Skravetsky in our little book club.
I don't know. Yeah, the difference between people tend to conflate Dostoevsky and Tolstoy together, but they are very different writers with very different spiritual themes.
Yeah. Someone in the chat says, "What are your thoughts on the Jackson KPH says? What are your thoughts on the ownership economy? Look it up on YouTube." Unfortunately, my browser isn't letting me open new windows, so I can't do that right now. But
you're not allowed to ask questions to make us watch separate videos to understand what the fuck you're talking about.
The ownership economy. I don't know. Is this like Sam Hyde's trash economy? Hold on. Someone says someone
Oscar
says that in high school.
But Oscar,
someone in the
do you go to church? Do you go to church, Oscar?
So I says, by the way, when I was in high school 7 years ago, I was a Destiny fanboy. I'm very ashamed of admitting that. How did you find my channel through Destiny, or how did you find my channel? I'm curious because I leave a lot of disparaging comments on Destiny videos. I sort of because Destiny fanboys are just so irritating. Destiny fanboys are truly amongst the most. I mean, oh my god, they're just so dense. Density. They're dense. He is at least I'll acknowledge, he's not stupid, he's not a genius, but he's not or even particularly remarkably intelligent, but he's clever enough. But his fans are so dense. I just spent
most of these
ages fucking trolling them in the comment sections. It's amazing, especially on the race realism debate videos.
Yeah, most internet personality fanboys are not particularly impressive.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of them you have a really niche audience. You might have some kind of self-selection there, but as people if it's a mass thing, it's just gonna descend to the mass person.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, you might see a couple smart comments, but for the most part. All right. Faye asks, have any of you heard of Lauren Rose?
Yeah, she lives in New York. She lives in or I think she does, doesn't she? I see her do videos from Central Park and shit.
I don't know. She's an attractive woman, girl. Who,
is she? Not to me, dude.
Well, she's fairly attractive. I mean, she's not I mean, she's good. She's good looking.
She's very. Dude, she's not thick. She's not thick enough.
Yeah, but it's the most basic bits. Civic nationalism is wrong because It's like it's nothing interesting, Oh my God,
Yeah.
base Lauren Rose.
I don't know.
You're such a genius. You're
I don't know.
so
It's
beautiful.
like
Please be my GM.
Lauren Rose is like someone tried to be a trad thought and failed. And that's basically what it comes down to. It's like, I'm just gonna say like basic bitch alt-right shit, and like the men will come round me for attention, but she hasn't even like been able to do it right.
Oh, but even then,
There's a funny meme that I saw where it was like the Virgin Lauren versus the Chad trad thought Lauren Southern or something like that.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. If someone can find that, it would be funny. Someone says in the comment section, as Stardust once put it, I see the matrix around me. It's all pixels, except I'm much more normie tier than Stardust and less intelligent. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just reading her latest tweet. This is about Black Panther. It's just a superhero flick, but it's a great example of the power of identity. Look through the tag, and you'll find many blacks finding joy in seeing other blacks represented as kings and queens because they strongly identify with their race.
I agree.
I know, but it's like so like obvious.
No, it's true, and that's why media is really important. And I think that movie, does a lot of good things for African diaspora people who have sort of begun to lose their identity. And I think that similarly, Europeans should probably do similar things for. I think Europeans implicitly do similar things for themselves, but it's not as explicit as Black Panther is. For instance, there's not like a superhero who's called like, I don't know, like the European something or other, it's like it's a little more, you see what I mean, like
I don't know, that's the meme there. I just posted it in the chat. And no, let's see, shit. The image location.
All right, anything else? Oh, this.
Is Abi Shapiro Ben Shapiro's sister?
Yeah, Abigail Shapiro. Yeah, Shapiro confirmed it.
I'm looking it up. She's not thick. There's nothing particularly unique about her, physically speaking. I don't see what people are talking about.
Her chest is, for someone like her weight, her chest is pretty large.
I guess. Yeah, but what? I mean, so what? She's not like. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing out of the ordinary. If you ask
yeah, but
me.
It's just.
But oh well, I guess I have your fun, Goyam. All right. All right.
So, Babs, what's the 10 out of 10 trad thought in your opinion? Your chosen opinion?
There is none. I don't find any of these women actually attractive at all.
What about Brittany Pettibone?
I don't find her particularly attractive. I mean, she's got a pretty face, I guess. She's just very young. I think she has a funny last name. Brittany Pettibone.
Thoughts on Stardust's view of female nature, summed up. Griffith's law of attraction. Everything women do is in exchange for resources.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I guess. I don't know. I
like bots. Like, it's not really about getting resources. They're just.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think women and men are both awesome. I think humans are cool. I think that. I think that I don't know. Like,
I mean, I guess kind of like the more like traditional society, the more like women are gonna, worry about, protecting themselves because they're weak and vulnerable. They need strong, powerful men.
You're gonna be a base.
But like the society, like a college environment where women can basically do whatever they want. A lot of it is just kind of descends into like hedonism and less to do with resources, so to speak. But I mean, they still have that in marriage. Like when women are looking for someone to actually marry, that definitely kicks in. Anyway, he was defrocked. What are you talking about?
Matthew Raphael Johnson, he's in that whole traditionalist workers party scene with the fat guy. What's he called? Fat guy.
Heinbach.
Heimbach, yeah. He was in those circles, and yeah, he's just this really edgy, defrocked, schismatic Orthodox priest.
Goose.
I don't know. I'm using the sort of all I really needed to do to point him out was identify that he was fat.
Yeah, I saw him on a documentary over here, and he didn't look good in any way for any sort of PR standpoint.
Fat Morty with hair. I mean, he is a Christian though, so I guess he's better than Fat Morty. But he's kind of like Richard Spencer in a way that he just seems like he really wants attention, wants to be on every documentary and every interview and all that.
What about if he wore Supreme?
It's actually viewpoints, which is kind of stupid.
All right, what's the real question? Are tags white?
No.
I don't know. I mean,
included right there.
I don't know. I mean, I'm always an advocate for saying that all Celts are non-white. That way, we don't have to participate in the Anglo-whiteness stain.
Yeah, but non-white's white.
Yeah. Also, why would you want to be white in the current world? Why would you not push for your group to be considered non-white?
Because you get to live with Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
True. I don't know. Well, but I mean, they're all being slowly blacked anyway.
We need to ensure a homeland for the Celtic people.
One of you, a guys has a message for one of you in the chat.
Who?
Imperial aspirations. By the way, I thought that the Orthodox aren't centralized like Catholics. Anglos disgust me.
Do I disagree? I'm not particularly familiar with most of his channel, but do I disagree with Ryan Dawson on any fundamental issues? If I do, I would think it would be interesting to have a discussion with him. But if I don't, then I shan't. There's no point in two people who just agree about everything. I mean, there is, but it's just there's no point to go out of my way for it. But I'm curious if anyone in the chat is familiar with Ryan Dawson. Are there any areas where I disagree with him? For instance, does he in regards to the whole Israel thing? I'm curious. But also Quid Est Veritas there. I know Ryan Dawson's very materialist, kind of geopolitics. It's not really my style, but I would still might have something to gain from talking to him. Also, Quid Est Veritas says, we must fight for our right to be utterly degenerate individualists, liberalists. And I agree. That is basically how I view it. It's pointless. The whole liberalist thing is crap. I got actually kicked off Sargon's server yesterday. I was having a jolly good time sort of stirring things up just a bit. I think, it was the dullest server I've been on in a while. Some guy literally right off the bat came in and started tipping his fedora at us. So I couldn't resist.
I don't know, but how stupid and cultist you have to be to actually call yourself a liberalist. It's just such a stupid term. Forget the ideology behind it. It's just so dumb. Liberalist. What's the liberalistism? It's so stupid. What's wrong with classical liberal?
You may not agree, but the liberalists are the new suffragettes and civil rights movements.
It's just so dumb. I almost feel like Sargon just wants to see if he can get if his fans are so servile that they're willing to embarrass themselves by calling themselves liberalists just because Sargon wants them to.
Yeah. The whole thing is just one giant psyop.
Yeah, the Skep father. I mean, why is everyone calling themselves a skeptic these days? Like, what even is a skeptic?
No one's calling themselves a skeptic anymore. I think that's sort of that ship
Yeah, they're all
sailed.
like based
Or,
around
I mean, skeptic is like the big thing these days.
Someone should meme the
Nah, skeptic
liberalist
was like 4 or 5 years ago.
intellect.
It was like I'm an atheist, but I'm smart.
I mean, it was, but now people are all saying skeptic all the time. You know, people are using it as an epithet, a negative epithet.
Yeah, because anyone who calls themselves a skeptic today is an insufferable asshole. So it's just like being. So why wouldn't you use it as an insult? It's like it's just thrown as an insult in the way that like people use Nazi as an insult.
It's the way language
Nazis are bad, therefore if you're bad, you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
As Nightmares would say,
now,
skeptic is Nazi for white people.
Yeah, 30 years from now, you'll be given detention if you call another kid a skeptic in class. Be like new nigger.
You'll be given detention for calling someone skeptic.
Base skeptic. I'm skeptic. Cool, guys. Yeah, I feel like it was skeptic. There was like centrist, and now it's
yes. Yeah. No, I don't think it's even possible to even like a communist is better than a centrist at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, I totally agree, because most of these centrists are sort of the sort of atomized individualist, we're all global consumer fucking shitty atomized bugman crap people, as opposed to, like, I prefer, this is actually something that Quides Veritas made an excellent blog post on, it's the distinction of the Gemeinschaft and the Gesellschaft, which is basically, yeah, effectively what we're talking about here is we're talking about civilizations that are more focused on the individual and their transactions and their sort of role as sort of like a cog in a machine, versus the thing that begins from the community and sort of works its way outwards. It's the two different mentalities found in civilizations, and that's the reason why I find a libertarian, a liberalist, a sort of global capitalist, or a bugman type like Destiny all equally abhorrent and dull and terrible, and why I find people like a communist or a theocrat or a materialist fascist would all be easier for me to break bread with, or be easier for me to have respect for.
Yeah, or even like, I don't know if you have them in America, but in Britain we still have people who are like very socially liberal, but at the same time they are also like old-fashioned socialists. I think even those types are like a lot easier to get on with than someone who just like essentially believes in nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's like more like the kind of far left, almost like Chomsky in a way.
Yeah,
but it's like the classical far left. Oh yeah, why did you time out Kiter?
Just for the band.
I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. Yeah, sorry. No, not allowed.
Not allowed what? Sorry.
Communist.
Punished futurist. All right, so
I was gonna say, Jack, you got called out there by Cater, and you've got to defend yourself right here, right now. He said Ortho Bros insufferable.
In the chat,
I count to.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I think it's only I think it's only consistent to treat him like that. After all, isn't futurism about activity and violence and motion? Would it not be almost contradictory for him to expect me not to violently reply to whatever he does?
Supreme.
Yeah, you need to get the gorilla mindset. You can't apologize.
Exactly.
If you're a fucking communist, you go on the bog, alright?
Yeah, but the difference between like...
No.
I don't know, but I mean, it's like... Even if someone goes in the bog, there's like, you can push someone essentially into the bog, or you can like say, ha, faggot.
We'll collectivize the bog pushing. We'll make it a collective community endeavor.
Yeah. At some point, I want to have a communist on. Sorry. At some point, I want to have a communist on the chat. There's a guy I actually located. It could be like because I realized that, there are all these channels that they say they've been doing Kumite this and blood sports that, but
You're going to get
What
into
they
Jewish
don't-
blood sports?
Yeah, precisely. What they don't realize is that far before this trend occurred, back in, I think it was 2017 or 2016, I had a call with Simon Elliott, Uzulu, I believe some assortment of the people in this call, and I invited Rebel Absurdities in, but he wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. And additionally, I think, was there anyone else in there? I think that was it. There was another person I had on, but the point is, it was an anti-natalism debate, and then I found these communists like a Rebel Absurdity and that other communist whose name is slipping my mind.
These the anti-natalist ones.
No. There was just one anti-natalist communist, but it's sort of like these lefty pole types. This guy, and then I found this new guy recently who isn't from lefty pole, but he's just sort of this communist who hangs around Discord, and he's not. He seems like a pretty all right guy, like he's not like a dumbass who will just sort of scream down his opponent's arguments. So I'd like to have him on to have a debate between a communist and a capitalist, because I really couldn't give a shit either way, and I'd like to see who can make better arguments first. Which
that
works.
Just sounds like
I think
capitalism.
populism. Yeah, it does, exactly. No, but it's sort of interesting. It's just, that's kind of what I'm trying to aiming for, though. That's the thing is, I'm not attached to communism or capitalism. In fact, I kind of don't like both. There has to be a third way, surely.
Are you a base
Like, how did
Meant by communist? Okay, do you mean like a Bolshevik? Like someone who's a Bolshevik? Who
I'm not quite
believes in
sure. I'll ask him.
dictatorship of the proletariat.
I mean, I suppose he does.
Overthrowing the government. And all like the pos that came with the Bolsheviks, like getting rid of marriage and shit like that. Or are they like anarcho-communists who believe in just, I don't know, destroying shit? Or are they sort of democratic communists or socialists who believe that you've got to slowly reform towards the communist utopia? And that they also don't believe that the working class dialectic is the most important dialectic of oppression. They believe in also like race and gender and shit like that.
Also, there's a question, Dubby, you're being asked if you're the same as iDubbbz.
Yes.
Yeah, he is. You heard it there.
Dubby, what is your content cup on the State of Israel coming?
There's a message in the chat.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty dumb.
Jack, you've just been blown the fuck out by Carter Endless.
Of course. Whatever shall I do?
Now, lads. Let's keep this civil.
1v1 on Rust.
1v1 Rust. Let's do it. Oh shit, it's a little sip.
Oh shit. Elliot Rogers joined.
Elliot Rod. Oh, Kelly, I was timed out.
Why is
again.
he deleting his messages? Who's deleting his messages?
That was
I don't know. He said that like you shouldn't. I mean, he just said like you shouldn't think that I would decry suppression. So I mean, it's like he doesn't decry suppression, so why not suppress him? That's
No,
just
don't do it, Jack. Come on, man.
sense. I'm just giving him what he wants.
Just fight. Just do it. Nothing like good old E-drama.
Yeah, someone call out PewDiePie. So
1v1 duel arena. Let's do it.
Get Keemstar on the call. Elliot Rothschild.
I like your profile picture, Elliot.
Oh, thanks, man. I made it myself. I'm actually getting it printed on a shirt. Yeah.
I fuck with it.
so.
Yeah.
Elliot Roger, why did you do it? Why did you destroy those lives?
Oh man, just I don't know, man. I forget now.
Thoughts, sometimes they just provoke you.
Fucking thoughts, man. They just suck.
If Elliot was still with us, then we wouldn't have the Drad Thought problem of 2018.
No, they'd all be sent to camps.
Wait, you're assuming that if he'd survived, he would have become what, like a dictator or something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you know how fucking?
I
mean, the incel, the beta uprising. It's happening, man. It'll happen. I mean,
I for one welcome our Hapa beta overlords.
Me too, man. Me too.
The Imperium.
Based Hapas.
Has Ed gone or something?
Yeah,
hello.
It's probably on the subway.
Yeah, sorry, my mic was just muted for a sec. I'm just getting dressed and putting my clothes on, or putting my outerwear on rather, because I'm about to head out. But
you going to UN?
I am about to go to my friend's place downtown. So let's see. Yeah, hey guy says, "Good, nothing like good old fashioned Spurg panel." Boo! Throws popcorn. Let's see. Are there any comments that anyone would like to make? Any questions that anyone would like to make for me or anyone else who's currently on the show to comment on? Any last closing remarks, etc.? No. All right. Then. All right. Cool. Then. Then I'm going to close this up. And Oscar Feinstein, Ed, do you apologize for the murder of our Lord? Sure. Why not? I mean, I'm not taking personal. That implies that I'm taking personal responsibility. That's a bit hefty. I'm not sure if I can shoulder the weight of that burden. I'm already shouldering a lot of other burdens for my people right now. I feel like fucking Atlas. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, everyone.
Oh, wait, I want to ask you
one last question.
I wanted
for
to ask
Imperial.
Oh, sorry. Who was the question for? Wait, was I the questioner? What the fuck is wrong with it? No, I was going to ask Ed. What happened to Adam Wallace?
He's dead.
Rip.
Unfortunate.
He came back in December and then left again.
No, he's just off doing more important things in real life at the moment, I think.
Okay.
And he doesn't have internet right now.
Can you confirm how many barrels of buckfast he's consumed in the past few months?
No, can't do, unfortunately.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Primbol. What's Primbol? Primitive Bolshevism? Primitivo Bolshevism?
Primitivist Bolshevism.
Uncle Ted did
Primitivist
nothing wrong.
Bolshevism.
It's like a narco primitivism. You gotta get rid of the even the fire is too advanced. You gotta get rid of fire.
Yeah, Adam Wallace is still on Tumblr. Go check out 9 is a magic number.tumblr.com. Anyway, I'm going to be concluding this. It's been an absolute pleasure, and take care. Have a nice evening. Good talking to everyone here. Add me on Discord. Ed number 7043, I think, or something like that. I don't know. Peace.
We led.
Woo. Is this still on his channel or not?
I think he's cancelled it, but I've got no idea. So
I don't know. It still says live.
Yeah, but that's because it's like a 20-30 second delay. I have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's a slight delay.
I'm gonna let you live from alt-right headquarters in Washington.
It's still streaming. It's still streaming. Look.
Oh shit! Is it?
It's still streaming.
Oh, cool.
All right. So
there's no way this is streaming on his channel.
Sabian channel.
Taking over.
So today we're going to talk about what's the best way to get rid of the Irish. How do we do it?
Yes.
Are we still on? Yes, we are still on. He didn't end it. Okay, so I guess we can just continue then.
Yeah. So my theory is that once you get rid of all the potatoes, right? Because this is proven by the famine of 1842, wherever it was. If you get rid of the potatoes, the Irishman doesn't know how to grow anything else.
I think we're also a bit too dumb to learn how to fish, so we're just still going to starve.
Well, that was what, over 200 years ago? Well, no, sorry, over 100 years ago. Which means that the Irish agriculture has probably changed a lot since then. Does anyone know about Irish agriculture?
I mean, you can just expect it because they're Irish, so nothing would really change.
We need a new Cromwell, maybe.
I've got an alternate theory, kind of held here by Tommy.
Red Siege.
I think the Irish Red Siege, and then they sort of accelerated the famine so that they'd have the revolution.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Sigil might have something here. He's talking about what do you think of positivism, which is probably like positivism is the truth. Basically, the workers' revolution will only occur with the help of the aliens.
Oh, I see. Is that real? Is that a real thing?
Yes, it is.
That's mad.
It's like Trotskyism plus like UFO cultism. It's a work of sheer genius.
Whoa, this is cool.
What's it called?
Positivism.
Positivism.
Okay.
There's fucking memes about this as well. This is cool.
I don't know. We should try and like integrate positivism into the Christ Bowl system. I'm still waiting for the stream to end, and it's just not ending. So, okay.
It must like go through to like different hosts. So someone's probably hosting it now. I've got no idea how this works.
Who's the host? If it's fucking Supreme, then I'm just gonna leave. I've had enough.
Host migration.
Yeah. So this will actually continue on for up to like 8 hours then. So.
No, I was gonna say. Completely seriously right now, I don't think I'm not like a anti-socialist really at all. Like, I don't even think socialism is left wing or right wing. I think socialism is generally just neutral. Like if it's just economic socialism, then I don't really see it as left wing or right wing.
Yes.
I don't know. The question is, what are you using socialism for? Are you using it to like smash a particular class because of their ideological disposition and their values, or are you doing it to obtain equality? Because if it's like socialism for equality, then that's an issue. But if you're doing it with like a more pragmatic means, then honestly, don't see what's wrong with that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Like if you try to increase the power of the nation, maybe like the welfare of the nation, maybe is that left wing or right wing? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I mean, if it's about like the welfare of the nation, that's left wing because nationalism is left wing. Ultimately. Yeah. And quite yes, the positivists did support nuclear war. They thought that if we provoked nuclear war, the aliens would have to intervene. Sort of